Welcome to Killer Content on Late Night Chat with. Look at us, the three of us: Leslie, me, and this weirdo down here, Nico. What's
There
up?
we go.
Just like the white winged dove sings a song, sounds like she's singing. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Just like the white winged dove sings a song, sounds like she's singing. Ooh, baby, ooh, say ooh. And the days go by like a strand in the wind, in the web that is blown. I begin again. Say to my friend, baby, nothing else matters. He was no more than a baby then. Well, he seemed broken hearted. Something within him.
Hopefully that song doesn't get blocked.
I probably will. I think that's Stevie Nicks' biggest track.
Fuck, bro, it's okay. Hey, you know what, man? If we got to make a block list of all the songs that have gotten blocked off our channel, and then make just put on our Spotify.
Yeah,
Spotify
exactly.
thing,
Yeah,
man.
make
Straight
the
the fuck
playlist.
up.
Make the playlist for late
Fuck
night
them right
chat.
up, man.
Yeah,
Say
we
that.
talked
You didn't
about-
want it.
Yeah, we talked about doing that in terms of the.
Or I could just buy a piano and start playing all the popular songs, and then
Oh, here we
nobody can
go.
block us on anything. Well, I can play piano.
There you go.
Yeah. So I used to know how to play, but hey, it's been a long time, man.
What did you know
Yeah.
how to play? Chopsticks? Get
The
out.
trombone.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about? You're still playing the fucking trombone.
I know. That's the only thing this guy knows how to play.
You don't believe me, but whatever. Fuck you guys.
Go
I'm
ahead.
not here to impress you
This
guys.
isn't my show. I'm the guest here today.
No.
Go ahead here.
You guys in our house. Sorry. What's up, Leslie? Guys,
Hey,
everybody
what's
out
up?
there. You get to get me a little bit in the, get me going after being on here for fucking 3 hours last night. Nice. Hey? Look at Nico. He can barely keep his eyes open. I love it. No?
Yeah,
So-
I am tired today, but yeah.
Did you make him go through a whole therapy session after the show again?
No, he was forcing me off. Trust me.
Yeah, we chatted. I was
Yeah.
okay. I was down with the chat yesterday. We just
Oh, okay.
no therapy. No, we're just catching.
Okay.
Yeah, no therapy. No. Jay knows if he goes straight to therapy, I just bounce. I'm like, all right, I gotta go back.
Yeah.
I don't put up with that shit.
Fuck you guys. It's all right. I just give him a message and he answers me at like fucking 2 in the morning. Hey, I want to take a shit. There's JT.
Yeah, there you go.
So
But yes, as Jay's alluding to, if you guys missed it, me and him did a late night at the movies last night. We talked about the Steve Martin movie, The Jerk. That was a lot of fun. What's going on, Larry? How you doing, man?
hey, what's up,
Hi.
Tool? It's the Tool. What's up?
Yeah, that's what we did last night. And then tomorrow at 8 p.m., you got a new episode of TikTok Time with Julie and Laura to look forward to. That's going to be tomorrow, Saturday. And that's their September episode of TikTok Time. And then also on Monday, me and Jay are back together with Late Night Chat Monday night. So October the 3rd.
Okay.
That's what's coming up in terms of the plugs. Let's get that out of the way here quick, because I'm sure this is going to be a nice lengthy discussion here today, right? About the Green River Killer. So
It always
Whoa.
is.
Leslie can bring it. I'll tell
I
you that.
was looking back on the episodes, because even though this is episode 9, there unofficially there's about like 18 episodes, because for anybody who doesn't know, Leslie actually brought this to the show when she joined Late Night Chat as like basically her segment on her episodes, and then it became its own show, because like she was basically bringing so much to every episode that she did in terms of the killer content, that we basically said you should do your own your own show for killer content, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of branched out from there. But if you check out the playlist, there's like 18 of these episodes now, I think. And it's funny because the way it worked out, I was on the 7th episode, and then I was on again 7 episodes later on episode 14. I was looking at it today. I was like, oh, that's so funny. That's weird. So this is 5 episodes later. Last time I was on, this is the reason I wanted to mention this. We did Dahmer, And it's really big right now because of this Netflix show. It's Netflix's #1 show, the new Dahmer show with Evan Peters there, who's a great actor.
He's awesome, man.
Yeah,
He was great.
Yeah, I can't believe Jay hasn't seen the show yet, honestly. Like, I am really surprised at you because I know we always talk about how good that guy is on the American Horror Story and everything else we've seen him in. Like, he's really good. So like I watched the whole show in like a couple of days myself, right? And I wanted to get everybody to go back and check out that episode though, if you've missed that episode, guys, because it was a really great episode. That was it was almost 3.5 hours of conversation on that one. I think it was the longest killer content that we've done, but we talked about another graphic novel that me and Leslie both read, My Friend Dahmer, which a lot of the stuff actually they show in this episode in this series about his high school years very briefly. And they
didn't show as much as what we talked about on that part.
No.
Yeah.
But to your credit, everything else, all the other information you inserted into that conversation and you did research on, the stuff that you chose to discuss,
get her head full.
Everything was covered in this show. And not everything was 100% correct. Like the Leslie stat, she was already talking to me about it. She was already calling them out for a couple of days. Right? That's why I wanted to talk about this very quickly at the top of the show.
Yeah.
What's going on, Rob? Yeah. So,
hi, Rob. You know what? It was okay. And that's just like the back of my head while I'm watching it, just getting frustrated. And I'm like, he never even confronted the guy with the bat, right? But so I was getting a little frustrated with that, but I couldn't even get upset because the show itself is so well done.
Yeah,
so well done.
Hey, it's not completely a documentary in that sense, right? So
it's not a documentary. Yeah. It's a biopic or what a bio series, right? Yeah. And there's a difference, right? There's always some dramatization in that, or embellishments, or little things that have changed, right? Yeah. Like the neighbors weren't who really the neighbors were that they were talking about. I mean,
I didn't watch it yet, all right?
But things like that.
But if you guys missed that episode, go back and watch it. If you were interested in the show, it was a really good episode where we talked about that. And if you wanted to see more about him prior to, like, basically in the development of him becoming a killer when he was a teenager in high school, that's the book that we talked about, My Friend Dahmer. And like I said, like Leslie, like, is fun because while I was watching the show, I was saying to Christine all this shit that I knew about and that we were watching like before it happened in the show, because I had remembered it from our conversation. I was like, oh yeah, this happened this way, and then there's this thing, and then we were actually seeing it play out on the television show. So it was really interesting. I think you did a really good job of covering that, because the things you chose to speak about it, a lot of it was covered in that show. So it was really good. Well done.
Yeah. Another little, like, and this isn't a spoiler, JT, so it's just like a little nitpick that I had. They actually, believe it or not, didn't emphasize so much on the shit that he really, really, really did. I think because he's actually grosser than what the show portrayed. And do you remember that scene where that acid tank was in the bedroom?
Yeah.
There were 3 of them at one point.
Okay.
So when they went in, and in the show, they only showed the one. Like, I mean, literally by the end of it, when they caught him, the whole apartment was covered in stuff. And the pictures weren't in the nightstand. They were on the bed.
Yeah, because those are like those big tubs that can stand stand acid without eating through it, right? That people like when they kill people, you hear about them, even on on shows like Breaking Bad, they were using it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whenever like people ended up getting killed on that show, that's the one thing. Those things, whatever the material is made out of, it won't eat through it, right? I think that's why they use those things. So there
were a lot more than just one in there.
Okay. Well, I mean, for that kind of a smell coming out of his apartment, I would think so, right? But yeah, if you guys haven't checked it out, there you go. It's Leslie Killer Content. Leslie Stats approved this show, the Dahmer show. It is
It's a great show. I suggest everybody watch it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I know it's some of them that obviously because it's the internet, they're now catching some flack for some of the like material in the show as well, because obviously there's a lot of touchy subjects that are involved with this storyline, right? I think it's people that didn't know about this stuff, maybe from back then, it's bringing to light some, some feelings about some of the things, and a lot of the racial stuff that was in it as well, and everything else, which again you talked about in our conversation that day.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, that's
and now Katy Perry's in trouble again for her song.
Oh, because she said something about Dahmer in one of her songs, or
you don't remember the song White Horse?
No.
There
is that the Juicy J one? Is that the Juicy J song?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So Juicy J has a lyric that, like Jeffrey Dahmer, eat you like Jeffrey Dahmer. Yes. So now the whole fucking TikTok internet is coming after her. And I'm like, the song has been out forever. And now you know who. There are 3 different songs that refer, and mind you, they're all very popular pop songs that all refer Jeffrey Dahmer, right? In terms of like some metaphor, right? And now people are getting upset. Well, you weren't getting upset when it fucking happened.
What do you expect? Right? That's how it goes, right? But yeah, Jay, Jay's been talking about this, excited for this episode because he said it's in his top 5 favorite serial killers ever. JT says he knows a lot about this guy, the serial killer for today.
I'm glad he does, because I'll be honest with you, it's not that it was hard to get information on what happened. What was hard for me was to get, and as we go, you'll understand why, it was to get the background information on most of the victims.
Oh, you're not gonna, man. There's no way. I couldn't.
There's too many.
There's way too many, and there's not even. They're not even. They don't even know.
And as I mentioned, the reason I'm on here today, because we kind of keep combining, our interests here. When I come on the show here, I always pitch these graphic novels about serial killers, and this is the 3rd one to Leslie, and Leslie joins me in reading them. There's a funny story behind the journey of this book here, and the fact that Leslie's got a copy as well. but yeah, no, it's this was really good. I really enjoyed revisiting this because I had read this when I first picked it up, but it's been years since I had actually read it. So I was glad we got to do this one, and I thought this was really good. And we can get into it as we get into the topic here, but I think I really liked this the most. I don't know if it's I may have liked this the most out of all 3 we talked about. The reason being that it was from the detective's perspective, which I really quite enjoyed.
Right, because his son wrote it.
Yeah, I know. I really liked it about it because, like, even though it says, even like it says on the cover, a true detective story, like it felt that way, you know what I mean? I was like, that's really cool. Like, I really like that about it, so I really enjoyed reading that one. So we'll be talking about that a little bit today, and of course all the research that Leslie always does on this. But I know Jay knows a lot about this guy too, so I'm interested to hear what he has to say.
I'm very interested. As I went along though and started reading more on Gary Ridgway, and knowing that JT really this is one of his favorites, and I'm like, why would this be one of his favorites? And then I was like, oh yeah, this sounds like JT. Oh yeah, this sounds like JT.
Well, I wanted to ask him too. I didn't know if we should ask him at the top of the show now, or if we should ask him later after it's discussed, because I'm interested as to why it's one of his favorites as well. Because
you'll start. If you listen throughout the show, you'll start to see why. If you look at my facial expressions, you might be able to tell you, right? So I mean,
yeah. Well,
it's just all around. He's I'm not saying it. He's a great guy, Yeah.
Well, I don't know, Leslie, did you, because I also brought some art along here with me today too to show off from the book, like some actual stuff I can put up on the screen. I don't know if you wanted to go over that briefly, or if you wanted to wait till later to go over that, however you wanted to do it.
So because I have the story down, the story kind of goes along with the book. Mm-hmm. So like if you had anything to add on, like imaging as we go, like pertaining to that part of the story that I'm telling, please do bring it up, because I mean, like, I tried to go along with the book, but there was other information that I had to throw in, right? Again, this is his son's version of his father's work. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, things differ.
Because I know, you had, I know you do a lot of reading, but I know reading graphic novels has been fairly new to you. Like,
I haven't done the
right?
Since you.
In doing these shows, right? Which and you know, as far as I know, you've enjoyed the experience because these are things, graphic novels written on topics you've enjoyed, right? Like where would you place this one amongst all three that we've read in terms of which one was your favorite then out of all of them?
The first one.
The Ed Gein one is your favorite still. Interesting.
I thought the graphics in that book were fantastic.
That's the best art. I agree.
So good.
I agree with you.
So good. And the story was so close to what actually happened. That's why I really enjoyed it. Whereas My Friend Dahmer was a different perspective of someone who only told the story from what he lived.
Yes.
As his friend, which was interesting, different perspective. And this one, I enjoyed it. It's still number 2. And the only reason I didn't put it as number 1 is because I don't agree with some of the perspective.
Okay. That's it.
And I'll explain why after.
Yeah, please. I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah. I'm not a police officer before I even start like bashing anything. I don't mean to bash it at all, right? Because this guy, obviously, his father did fantastic work. Like, I'm not saying not to take anything away from this police officer, but it really took away from what they did wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you got to kind of fill in the blanks with, I think, while reading this, because there's a lot of stuff that left me kind of questioning certain. I don't know if it's with the way that the story was being told in this one, but I think it really came back around towards the end of the graphic novel for me. But I think somewhere along the way, it kind of was a slow build. And I mean, obviously that kind of was the case as well. And like it left you with a lot of questions, as it did the police and everybody else by the end of this, rightly so, which, you know, I know we'll get into, but yeah, I think for me too, like throughout the book, I felt like there were some moments, even like you said, there was, you know, maybe they weren't so explained very well, or maybe like they definitely made some mistakes in terms of like them investigating the murders and maybe even this killer, right, in the book. I think you're right in saying that as well. But you could tell that this is something that, you know, again, because of the times and the technology too, plays a big part in this case, right? It does. Right.
It does. But unfortunately, like many of my other cases before, the same problem keeps arising.
Yeah.
And it's a big part of the reason why this case wasn't taken so seriously from the beginning.
Very quickly, I just want to mention the journey that this book took, and then I'll hand it over to you, Leslie. This is a hilarious story. I quickly want to mention. We waited for the show to talk about it. So I bought the copy that Leslie has. I bought that copy like years and years ago. Okay. And then I lent it to JT at one point, thinking, hey, maybe I can get this guy to read a comic book, because he doesn't read. So, and on something he really likes. He spotted it on my shelf like years ago when we first started doing the podcast. And he's like, oh, Green River Killer. I really like this guy. You read a book about this guy? I'm like, yeah, maybe you'd be interested in it. Why don't you borrow it? And then it enters the JT vortex, everyone, aka his room or the trunk of his car. It disappeared somewhere in there. 3 years later, JT decided to clean his room very recently, and he uncovered this book. But somewhere along the journey, maybe a few months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, or whatever, Leslie, when she was picking up, 5 months ago when we did the Dahmer one, she came to pick up the Dahmer one. And at that point, I had given up hope. I asked JT about it. He's like, I don't know where that book is. I'm pretty sure I didn't borrow it, man. I'm like, okay, so I'll buy a new copy because I don't know what I did with it then. So I bought a new copy of this book, the copy I'm holding in my hands right now. And then when Leslie came to pick up the Dahmer one, I brought this one down. It was like, I had it for like a couple of days. Like I just got it in the mail from Amazon. And I mentioned to Leslie, oh, we should do this one next if you'd like the Dahmer one. Because we were having fun doing the graphic novels. I figured let's keep it going. And Leslie's like, oh, you know what? Why don't you let me borrow that one right now as well then? I'll take that one as well. So I was like, yeah, okay, sure, right? Anyways, then Leslie ended up with this book for 5 months. I just got this version last week. By that point, because the other version was uncovered, I said, Jay, just give the other one to Leslie if she wants it. Let her keep that copy. I'll keep my new copy. I'll get my new copy back. So these guys, these killer content people here, guys, they held my books hostage for a total of 3 years. JT buried it amongst his room. Leslie abducted it with the Dahmer book in front of my building. No, it was. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that. No, it was just funny the way that it kind of got passed around, as Jay would say, like a dirty whore.
That's it, buddy. That's it.
So yeah, so I just wanted, it was just funny though. I'm glad though that Leslie's been enjoying doing these ones. And there's one more that's on my radar if I can track it down and if it's based on a real murder, because I'm not too sure at this point in time. I will let you know about that one for a future episode, because I do like these. I do like coming on and being able to kind of join in on the conversation by reading these books, right? So yeah.
I like reading different perspectives on things. Right? But of course, I'm also someone who likes hearing things from the horse's mouth instead. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, which is the reason why I have a lot of autobiographies, and I try not to purchase biographies in general, just because I like to hear someone's perspective on their own life, right? And this guy had a lot of talking to do. You can find videos of him all over YouTube talking away. A lot of my information that I heard was from his interviews. And it was just like, it was amazing to fucking see how nonchalant this guy is. So it stays true to the book, actually, because I can see how his personality helped him get away at some point for so long about certain things. It did have a lot to do with that. His personality, unfortunately, did have a lot to do with that. And for someone with such a low IQ, he was pretty smart.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very clever. I like how frustrated they showed the cops getting in this book of dealing with
I honestly, as I was reading the book, and it was interesting to see it through the detective's view, I don't know how the detectives didn't just fucking launch over the table at times and strangle him.
They could have, and maybe just didn't make the book, right? I mean, like that's
They
that.
didn't.
They didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah.
But I would have. I don't have that patience or that control over this bullshit.
Yeah, go ahead, and as you said, like I'll interject with some art throughout the discussion here, or maybe things about the book that I can mention as well. But yeah, feel free. I know we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get started. With Ridgway, he was born in Salt Lake City, Utah, to Mary Rita Steinman and Thomas Newton Ridgway on February 18th, 1949, making him a Pisces. He has two brothers, Gregory Leon and Thomas Edward. He's the middle out of those two brothers. Sorry, Rob just posted something. I know you said.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe for a future episode.
Oh yeah. So I did the Santa one, Rob. Remember? So I've been looking at more. There's two more that I've been researching honestly right now this past month for serial killers. At the same time, two of them are Canadian. So I definitely want to bring a little more Canada, but we live in a cool country, so we don't have too many. And the ones that do haven't killed that many, except for one. But and so I've done two Canadian serial killers already.
Yeah. All right, more to come. It sounds
and
like
more to come.
Good suggestion though, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Ones that hit close to home, especially right in that sense.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, I know. Yeah. Didn't you also do the pig farmer guy?
Yeah, that was Canadian number one.
Yes.
And then I did the one from Toronto, the Santa one.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So he was the middle child of Greg, like between Greg and Thomas. So Thomas was younger, Greg was older. They were raised in the McMiken Heights neighborhood of SeaTac, Washington, which was a decent neighborhood. So it wasn't like a rough neighborhood. And Gary, like most other serial killers, surprise, surprise, had some mommy issues. Big ones. I'm telling you, like anybody Be a good mom if you're out there, because your kid could be a serial killer one day.
That's probably the only thing that's saving me, man.
Oh, one time she even went all Amber Turd on her husband. Okay.
This fucking rat.
And she smashed a plate over his head, her husband's head, in front of the kids at the dinner table. And her husband just got up and left the table. He didn't retaliate. He didn't hit her back. He didn't do anything. Just
little bitch.
And Gary hated his mom for being so mean and violent. And he hated his dad for not standing up for her or even protecting him and his brothers from her. She also had some really questionable tactics when dealing with Gary. An example, as a boy, Gary had a habit of wetting the bed, and his mother would often be the one to discover the accidents, and she would bathe him immediately in cold baths and even scrub his genitals.
Yeehaw.
He was 13, guys. And she would do it half naked.
She was half naked?
She was half naked in the bathroom with it. Yeah, doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. She would she would belittle him and embarrass him in front of his family about it too. And he had he's a teenage boy. He's never seen a naked woman except his mother at a very young age. So he's prepubescent, right? And so he started getting, according to him, feelings of sexual attraction and anger towards her because he was sexually confused, right? So instead of acting upon these conflicting urges towards his mother, he eventually does towards other women. And JT, I don't know if you remember from the last, I think it was either the last or the one before serial killer that we did. His father, he had the McDonald triad. Do you remember us talking about that?
Mm-hmm. McDonald triad.
The three things that make up a serial killer, the three signs that make up a serial killer: the wetting the bed, the animal killing, and the starting of fires. Mm-hmm. He had all three of them.
Yeah.
His father had quite the influence on his future behavior too. His father worked in a mortuary, and he would come home and tell Gary when he was a kid about his coworker who would have sex with dead bodies.
Nice.
Like, why would you tell your kid something so morbid that you saw at work? Oh, son, sit down. Guess what I saw today? You know, Jack, he works with me. He grabbed this chick, pulled her out of the drawer, and just started banging her, and she was dead. She didn't respond, nothing. Did whatever he wanted to, fondle her. Yeah, like, disgusting. Disgusting.
Ew.
Think of that. Think about that.
Think about that. So you're a teenage boy. You're having all these weird sexual violent thoughts towards your mother because she's sexually violent idiot anyways. And then your dad comes home. Huh?
You have all those free dead bodies at your dad's work you can have your way with.
Well, he starts seeing that that's a possibility. Right? Because his father is explaining to him that his buddy does it at work.
Right.
Seems like it's cool, right? At that age, probably.
Like, oh, why would you tell your kid that? Oh, it's disgusting. So, and as a young child, Ridgway was tested with an IQ of 82. So it's a very low IQ, not low enough to be considered mentally behind, but not very intelligent.
What was it? What was the IQ? Do we have that?
82.
82.
Oh, I was about to say around 80s. That is on the border.
Yeah, just 82. Yeah, so he's right on the borderline.
80 and below or something.
Yeah.
That's very good.
It doesn't seem like it though. Go on. It doesn't seem like it though in the future. From there. His
academic performance in school was so poor that at one point in high school, he had to repeat a single school year twice in order to attain grades decent enough to even pass. His classmates at Tai High describe him as well liked and funny, but largely forgettable. So he was like not Mr. Popular, but he wasn't a big nerd either. He was just like, you know,
Dahmer too, right? He kind of just like, you know, it got lost in the mix essentially, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's part of the reason he was able to evade capture for so long, too, right? Because although on the outside he looked and acted like a normal teenager, on the inside he actually had all the symptoms of the McDonald triad, right? That I explained earlier. Further than the McDonald triad, he would also follow girls he liked in elementary school, and he'd stalk them home from school. And this is elementary school. He continued this all throughout his teenage years, and even once tried to force himself on a girl he drove home from school. So like the research that I found touched a bit on his rape victims that survived, but he was attempting rape and murder well into his teens, right? So here's the part of the book that we start with. Right. And this happened when he was 16. There was a 6-year-old boy who survived an attack of his. He led the boy into the woods and stabbed him through the ribs into his liver. And according to the victim and Ridgway himself, Ridgway walked away laughing and said, "I always wondered what it was like to kill someone."
Yeah, and as you can see here, it was depicted in the art here. This was the intro of the book, by the way.
Yeah.
This was a great way to start it. And then it kind of went into the detective's perspective from here. But like the cold open of the book is you get to see him, like what Leslie's describing happening here, like his first attempt at murdering somebody here and basically luring this kid out to the woods there, kind of like playing with him, right? And ends up stabbing him like this. Yeah, it's pretty crazy start of the book. From there, he kind of hooks you right from the get-go, I feel like, and then they kind of bounce back and forth between the past and the present day of the detectives, I should say, that are basically trying to find this guy and find out who the Green River Killer is. And but yeah, this is basically I think he did a really good job. Now that I saw the picture of the guy that you sent, Leslie, of like of what this guy looked like, the artist, I think did a good job depicting what he looked like, and especially when he got older. But yeah, this is the scene. Yeah, that's basically what you just said. He just walks away and he's just like, yeah, I always wanted to know what killing.
It was like to kill someone.
Yeah, that was
right.
Great intro to the book for sure. Yeah,
but he actually did really say that, right? So when I was reading the book, I was like, oh, that's interesting. They actually using his exact quotes, right?
Yeah.
So the boy survived, but he reported Gary, but because he didn't know Gary too well, they couldn't find him. Do you get what I'm saying? So he was never booked for that. He was never caught for that. Nothing. So Ridgway joined the Navy after graduating at the age of 20. He married his... Pardon?
Good old Navy boy.
Yeah, well, it gets worse.
Well, I know where he was.
He married his high school's girlfriend, Claudia Barrows, and he was sent to Vietnam, where he served on board a supply ship and saw combat. During his time in the military, he began spending a lot of time with prostitutes. He says he was forced to because his wife was so far away. Like, this is a trend Gary has, that he does things and he always blames it on the women.
Well, I think she was cheating on him too when he got back, no?
She did. Very good, JT. She did. But he also caught gonorrhea twice.
You just say he always blames it on women? Jeez. Sound familiar?
Right? This is JT familiarity number one.
You see how I pointed that thing out first? Get it right afterwards. You know, the fucking bitch was
Oh,
cheating.
watch out. JT Fax is here. You should change your name to JT Fax on the screen, bro. Oh, by the way, I forgot to show off my shirt because it's killer content. I wear my Pinhead shirt because it's Halloween.
Oh, nice.
From the
Nice.
from the Hellraiser movies. So
Hey,
yeah,
can we stick a bunch of those things to my head somehow, bro? Make it look cool.
Bro, you would make a fucking awesome fucking Pinhead.
Pinhead,
But I
perfect
have to
Pinhead.
shave all this, bro.
You are a Pinhead.
Oh,
You got both of us tonight, Leslie.
huh?
You got both of us tonight. And after a show like last night, I don't know. You better be careful. Tread lightly.
He contracted gonorrhea, and this enraged him. But he continued to have unprotected sex with prostitutes.
How much
Meanwhile,
protection was there back then? But really,
I don't know. Meanwhile, his wife Claudia, alone and 19 years old, starts cheating on him too. He calls her a whore and divorces her within a year of marriage.
So,
Right.
So she's the whore for cheating on him, but he's not a
Right.
whore
yeah.
for sleeping around with whores and contracting gonorrhea.
I guess
Nope.
back then, no.
Already he has a warped perception of women, essentially, right, in his life. I think,
Well, yeah, well, look at what he grew up with, right? The mommy thing.
yeah. So already you could tell that this was already going to be his target at this point in his life, right? Which is weird because the fact that he stabbed like a young boy doesn't really match up with what he kind of was focused on moving forward, right? I guess that was just the only opportunity he saw available to him, maybe in that moment in
It's
time.
like, fuck the little animals, man. I'm gonna get something and try something that's gonna run away.
So this part I found interesting, and I was surprised they actually didn't mention in the book this part of his life because it was extremely important to everything. So this is the beginning of his adult life. In 1972, he gets a job painting designs on trucks. Neighbors and coworkers describe him as an average nice guy, a bit weird, but nice guy. He marries again. His second wife, Marcia Winslow, claimed that Ridgway had become fanatically religious.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, they didn't talk about that.
They didn't talk about this part. And during his second marriage, and he would like go as far as to proselytizing door to door, like a Jehovah Witness,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And reading the Bible aloud at work and at home, and insisting that Marcia follow the strict teachings of the Bible. Though Ridgway continued to solicit the service of prostitutes during this marriage. So here's that contradiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this part I did find interesting because he turned to religion, yet he continued to look for prostitutes behind his wife's back, but made her live a very strict religious life.
What I find more interesting about it is the fact that he turned to religion so early in his life, because a lot of these guys, you see them turning to religion later in their.
Oh yeah, they all find God when they get caught.
Right, because like, you know what I mean? Then it becomes about a higher power or a meaning to what they're doing, or like, you know what I mean? Like we even saw that play out again in the Dahmer TV show.
Asking for forgiveness. Yeah. How convenient, Dahmer. All of a sudden, you see something about someone, God forgiving someone, you know, for all their sins, and now you want to be forgiven. Like, fuck.
Yeah, so that's interesting that he, and maybe, I don't know, but was this still a thing throughout like his life, or was this just very early on that he kind of was?
This was during his second marriage. It didn't happen so much in his third.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's another weird thing. He also wanted Marcia to participate in sex in public and inappropriate places. So sometimes even in areas,
a little bit of that shit, but a little bit of BDSM and all that fun stuff.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, you'll see it in the types of killings, right?
it got worse, man.
I know it got worse.
Yeah.
To the point where the
like no,
second wife
in terms of his wife.
She got scared, I would think.
Sometimes he even forced her to have sex where his victims' bodies had been discovered. Yeah, and she had no idea that he was the Green River Killer.
Yeah, but she had no idea that those were the bodies were there at one point either. I don't think.
No. So in 1975, Marcia gave birth to his son.
Yeah.
And his son comes into play with this too. Gary was so pissed after her having their son because she couldn't have sex for 6 weeks. He blamed his son for the lack of attention he would get because she had to devote her attention to their son. Once they started to have sex again, Marcia said that he would choke her to the point where she would almost pass out. And all of this awful behavior led to her eventually leaving him. And according to an article in Time magazine, Ridgway had an insatiable sexual appetite. All 3 of his ex-wives and several old girlfriends reported that Ridgway demanded sex from them several times a day.
Wow, this guy's got an amazing sexual appetite.
Jeez.
Yo, that's fun. Think about
That's
it.
like some harem shit, though.
Where do you get that energy?
Yeah, that's a lot, man. 7 times a day, no, but like demanding though, like it seems like against her will, right? Like against.
Yeah, he would demand it. Yeah,
that's
But I mean,
messed up. That's
But I mean, you know how much food you would have to eat, how many calories you have to put in just to keep that fucking. You know what I mean? So you would go.
That's a lot. Yeah, I know. I'm not disagreeing.
It's a lot after once a day, man. Fuck.
Yeah. Oftentimes he would want to have sex in public or in the woods. He himself admitted having a fixation with prostitutes with whom he had a love-hate relationship. He frequently complained about their presence in his neighborhood, but he also took advantage of the services regularly. It's possible that Ridgway was torn between his uncontrollable lusts and his staunch religious beliefs.
That's staunch for the just beliefs.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I also wanted to mention here, the graphics on this are pretty well done, too. They're better done than the Dahmer ones.
Yeah. The art is, I would rank them the same way you ranked the books from first, second, third. I would also rank them in that sense in the art styles as well.
Yeah.
The art in this one is it is very good and as well, but yeah, and I think the Dahmer one was probably the poorest kind of, like his style just looks very kind of like, you know what I mean, like it's not as clean and polished as these ones. It's more cartoony. The Dahmer book was more cartoony, I would say. Where the Ed Gein one was the most graphic and kind of scary kind of looking art of it. This one is like probably the most like real life, like, you know what I mean, like depiction of like, you know what I mean, like good caricature like of the characters, right? You know what I mean? Like they actually made them look like really, really like themselves. I mean, I didn't see a picture of the detective, to be fair, but I saw the picture of the Green River Killer here, and I think he did a pretty good job of depicting him.
The detective similar, very similar, man. He does that. If it was the early age,
this is him here. Yeah, this is him here when he got a mustache and joined up.
Was it Reinhardt or what the hell was his name?
Doyon. There's 2 of them. There's sorry, I don't know, Leslie, if you have their names ready there. If they're what the hell?
This one is Tom Jensen.
Tom Jensen, yeah, and the guy's son wrote this book, who's Jeff Jensen, yeah, and then the other guy, his partner is something Doyon or something. That's the guy, like his like
his chief,
yeah, and he transferred here, like when they first introduced him after the intro here. From burglary into homicide, essentially, right? He's this was like, I guess they show him walking into this bar and seeing this murder that had taken place, and they're like, yeah, it's not like this in burglary, is it? And he's like, no, it isn't. And then from here, kind of he starts investigating the Green River Killer stuff, and so I didn't know when there'd be a good opportune time for this, so I just wanted to show off another few pages. And
I thought, thank you.
Yeah,
I thought that would be great.
I know we're about to get into the murders now, so I figured I might as well show some of the art here. Go ahead.
Here's another thing about the comic book: the research that I did barely even mentioned Jensen.
Interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, because he seemed like he played a big part in the capture of him, right? I mean, that's interesting.
Well, I think maybe they changed the name. Does it say anything about him changing the name? Maybe for
No. His name is Tom Jensen. They did mention him, but they mentioned all the other people in the task force and all the other detectives as well, including the FBI ones. And I felt like this book omitted some of that.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really touch on the help that they got.
Yeah, again, I think
the FBI too much.
There was a lot that they didn't choose to include in this. Obviously, it's from the son's perspective of probably
exactly
his father told him about him investigating this case. So the things that they did choose to focus on in this book are very specific to his experience with this case, right? So
exactly,
this wasn't really a book about him. Like, I think out of the 3 books we've done, the only one that was basically the author saying this is about this character was the Ed Gein one. The other ones are 2 different perspectives, like you said, different perspectives on the
perspectives on it. Yeah.
So that's why I like this one, because it was a detective story. Like, I kind of
exactly
about this one. I was like, oh, this is.
I enjoyed that aspect of it too, very much.
Yeah.
But like, I guess for researchers' purposes, I got a lot from here that I couldn't find anywhere else.
Yeah.
And then I got a lot from here that wasn't in here, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I kind of combined both together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we get to the murders. July 1982, there's a young 16-year-old in foster care named Wendy, and she went missing. She left home to become a prostitute. Just 1 week after running away, a couple of boys find her floating body in the Green River. At first, they thought it was a mannequin. Guys, if you ever think it's a mannequin in the water, it's never a mannequin. Call the police. It's not a mannequin.
I think that's a lot of people's, first reaction, because they don't want to.
Of course, because it's a still body.
You don't want to believe it's a real person, and that's the
yeah.
scary. That's the scary part about it, because you know what? Walk up to the fucking and see a body laying there.
Yeah.
You tell me how you're gonna feel afterwards.
And that is depicted here in this page here. They show the bodies kind of floating up to the surface here that I guess they can't cross. Yeah.
So that's kind of the
cops.
part now that I'm going to describe. Yeah. Sorry, JT. Go ahead.
Imagine the cops that had to just keep witnessing this. And then you're going to get into how many. I'm not even going to get into, because this is only 1982. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, it did begin a little bit before, but I mean, I don't think very much.
No, they began in 1982. Anything before that, we don't know.
You don't know exactly.
It's suspected that he killed before, because look, he tried to kill that kid when he was a teenager.
There's a suspicion that there's a lot more.
No, they know there was a lot more. He's admitted to a lot more. He said he lost count after 70.
Yeah, but he only went to jail for 48.
49.
I'm off by 1. I apologize.
Yeah.
But yeah,
those are the only ones he can link to and that he confessed to.
And he fucking could point out.
And half of them, well, I won't even say half. In 90% of them, he didn't know their names or which ones they were, or where they were.
No, but that we'll get into after. I mean, in a sense, because
we'll get into that in a little bit.
A whole different personality thing.
Once they got close, they saw it was a body of a naked girl with her clothes tied around her neck. Police at first thought it was a one-off. However, 4 weeks later, another woman was found floating down the same river. She was 23-year-old Deborah. 3 days later, 2 more women were found floating.
Just think of this rate now. That you're just saying by day now. Now you're not even saying by a week or month or nothing.
No.
So you're saying
daily
by day. Okay?
Yeah.
So just think about this in your head for a bit, guys.
17-year-old Cynthia and 31-year-old Marcia. Now these 2 were different than the other 2 because police were processing these 2 bodies. These 2 were different than the other 2 because these 2 were being held down with pyramid-shaped rocks in their vaginas.
That's crazy. This is crazy. Yeah, I like that. When I read that, I was like, "Whoa!" Like this is messed up. This one, this.
It's like a corkscrew, bro.
That's not even the most messed up part.
That's just that's. I've never heard that before though. Like he purposely found rocks shaped to like just shove up there to like I guess like weigh them down. I guess in his mind or something, right? Like that's pretty.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not. You're not gonna make them eat them. You gotta. Once they're dead, you gotta figure out how to get them in their body.
Yeah.
It's up.
Now, as police were literally processing these two bodies, they find another body of a missing 16-year-old girl named Opal. And Opal was found with a pair of pants tied around her neck. She was found less than 24 hours after she was being murdered. She had been murdered. From this point on, a list of bodies just kept appearing along the Green River. All of them died via strangulation. Women and teenage girls are now also consistently going missing. And they know that they have a huge problem in their hands. They try to follow every tip they possibly can, but they just keep running around in circles. Now, on April of 1983, they finally get a tip. An 18-year-old girl named Marie goes missing. She's the 23rd girl to go missing. So from July 1982 to April of 1983, so far we've got 23 girls.
There you go. Now think of that pace. That's 2 a month.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
As they investigate her disappearance, a witness says that they saw her get into a pickup truck. This information wasn't new, though. There were multiple people who describe a pickup truck where they saw many of these missing women go into before they went missing. What was new about this particular time was the witness said that she saw the very same pickup truck parked in front of a neighbor's home. When the cops look into this tip, they find out it's Ridgway's home. They question him, and they think he's a nice guy. They take him in to do a polygraph, which he passes.
Well, there's a lot of speculation around that, about how something like that.
They mention it in the book. The cops talk about it. Yeah, they do mention. Why do you think they did it wrong, or like he was?
No, polygraphs aren't even admissible in court for a reason.
Especially, yeah, but
they're bullshit.
Yeah,
and you can
speculation about that. Why?
Anytime, if I'm ever going to be questioned for anything and someone wants to give me a polygraph, I'm always going to say no, because it can work both ways. I can tell the truth and it could come out as a lie on a polygraph due to my heart rate or my nerves or anxiety, right? And I'm telling the truth, but I'm still anxious about the situation, right? It's going to come out bad. I could be telling a lie and being calm as fuck and being able to come out as the truth. That's why polygraphs are bullshit and they are no longer admissible in court.
Yeah, they're not consistent, and you've heard a lot of stories of people like beating the polygraph.
They used to, and then before DNA. That's still the light ages of the DNA. But before,
we have to also think of the time this was. This is the 80s.
This, I mean, again, it comes up later on, but that is why they gave him the polygraph, because they didn't have the chance to study the DNA of this person, right? Because since the cold lock storage essentially for years and years and years, they didn't have the technology at that time to analyze it, right? Which is pretty fucking crazy that took so long to actually like, you know what I mean? Like it's nuts. Like, I mean, it's a shame. It's just so many. It seems so simple. It seems so clear to me in this book that they had the guy and they let them slip away like they did in this book, right?
Not like, once, but twice.
Yeah. Like they had him, and it's just like it's pretty crazy.
I can't. I feel like I can't even say, because I mean it's even these cops. I mean, not for anything, but he was good at talk. I mean, he must have been a good talker for him to get away for just all these years.
He was.
It's only 1 year, bro.
And that's what's so surprising with someone with such a low IQ. The fact that this is one of the serial killers who has such a low IQ, but was so smart in a different way to be able to go so long without being caught.
I found the most interesting thing about him, and that's why, again, if he's in your top 5, Jay, like I kind of get it in the sense that he's like an enigma. This guy, like he's so like and unlike every other serial killer I think you guys have talked about in that sense, because you can't peg him down. And when you think
his own category,
when you think you peg this guy down, he throws like a little twist in there of some sort, or like to confuse them and stuff like that. And then sometimes he exhibits, like you said, his IQ level. Other times he doesn't. Or is he just playing stupid? Or is he not? Is he actually stupid and forgetful? Yeah. It's hard to say. Like, it's really hard to say. Like,
he played his cards right. It's just, I feel like he knows how I still believe he's smarter than they like to depict.
Who's to say though? It's so hard to say.
I know.
Like, he's unique, I think, in that sense. Out of all the serial, and like you said, his body count is more than, if not like, you know, like than some of the biggest murderers that you guys have.
More than Ted Bundy. So that's what I mean. Bundy. More than Ed Kemper.
He's probably
more than Ramirez.
He's probably more than the most in modern history.
More than BTK.
He's probably. Probably.
And you want to hear something really fucked up? JT, there was a time when Green River Killer, Ted Bundy, BTK, Ed Kemper, and Charles Manson were all killing at the same time in the same state.
That's insane. That's insane.
It's a big state, though.
Look at that stats, man. That's nuts. And not only,
it's a big state.
I mean, it's interesting because this guy's putting up like fucking Jack the Ripper numbers, killing prostitutes and all this other shit that he's doing. And like you said, he doesn't. I don't feel like if I never had read this graphic novel, I've never heard about this serial killer. But I'm not into this stuff as much as, let's say, you guys have been in terms of seeing the documentaries, into this kind of stuff. If something catches my eye, or the show like this one recently came up with, it's not that I don't have an interest in it, but I don't seek everything out. Let's say, but right. But I mean, like, it is very interesting. That's what I took away from this read, because read of this is that he is very unique in that sense. Like, and although he has a lot of the traits of these serial killers, like you're saying, Leslie, in a lot of ways he's very different than they are. And he actually seems like he was smart enough to try to throw them off the trail during.
And we'll get to that too.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Sorry, are you getting static? Anybody?
I was a little bit, yeah.
When Nico was talking, I don't know, is it me or is it?
I can leave and come back if that's the issue.
It's when Nico's talking.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Do you hear it when I talk?
No, I only hear when Nico's talking.
I don't hear it when you talk either. But say something, Nico.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'll leave and come back because I'm not getting any static on my end, so I'll be back.
Yeah. Yeah, you there? I'm here.
Yeah.
Go on. He'll be just.
Yeah, no, I just found that interesting. Like, I mean, it's really easy, I guess, and this is what I have to remind myself, right? It's really easy, I guess, to blame the cops for not doing their job properly, right?
Yeah.
But
the technology, they only are giving it with the shit they're given. They can only play with the hands that they're dealt, right?
Right.
I mean, they didn't really have much to go on.
Yeah. So, like, you also have to look at the fact that there are 5 other serial killers all killing at the same time, right? So, like I said, it's easy to blame the cops. And again, I'm not a cop. I don't want to bash any cops. I understand that the times were different. I understand that the technology wasn't there.
Yeah.
But another factor maybe to this whole aspect is the simple fact that it's really hard to get resources when you've got 5 other serial killers going on at the same time in the same state. Right?
It's hard to when you don't even know who's killing all these people, and you can't tell. I mean, it's not that it's hard. It's you don't know who's doing what and how many people there are doing them or what the fuck's going on. Like, I mean, this guy, just by him alone in that first year, it sounds like there's more than one person killing in that state.
Right. And actually one of the I didn't write this down, but I did want to touch on it. One of the FBI agents at one point did think there were 2 Green River killers.
But because at one point it seemed like because the way just the gap between the areas too. You know what I mean?
And it wasn't just that; it was that most of the women were teenagers, and then all of a sudden, a couple of them weren't, and a couple of them also weren't prostitutes, and one of them was even pregnant, which is completely different than the Green River's MO. However, he did kill them.
But you'll figure out why it's not really that completely different. If you have a sexual urge like that, I mean, it's just an object at one point. It sucks to say it like that. I hate saying it. I feel like I'm saying something wrong, but you gotta think. If you have that,
it's very clear that that's his frame of mind. It's very clear that that's his frame of mind.
Yeah, so it's not easy, right? At all, by far, by no means, right? And I'm not giving him any credit whatsoever, but think about it.
Yeah.
If he's really that fucking messed up, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just that mindset of police weighing this is the way people serial killers are thinking back in the day wasn't all there yet.
But because there's no evidence to keep him, and because he doesn't sound like a bad guy, like he sounds like a nice guy, they don't bother looking into him. And he had a couple of rape charges on him. Had they looked into him, they would have found that. And they would have been able to maybe get a warrant like they did later on. But they didn't. Right?
Yeah.
So they didn't fully investigate him as well as they should have the first time.
Well, go on.
So on May 8th, 1983, another body was discovered that was later identified as Carol Ann Christensen, 21. Her remains were found by a family hunting for mushrooms in a wooded area near Maple Valley. When Kristen's body was found, the killer displayed her corpse in an unusually gruesome way. Her head was covered with a brown paper bag. And there's a picture of that, Nico, and I was wondering if you uploaded it.
Yeah, it's coming in a moment here. Yeah. Some of this. So this is some of the art here. They're showing like when this is jump to the future in these scenes where they've finally caught him and he starts to show them, essentially trying to figure out or pretend like he knows where some of the other bodies are that they were searching for at this time. And this is kind of when he starts putting them on some sort of wild goose chase that you guys are going to hear about later on here. But
right. So like, that's why it's so hard for me to like kind of like follow along with the book because there's jumping back and forth.
Yeah, I could have arranged the art in an order that may have been more appropriate, but I didn't. So
no, I mean like we're telling a story and the art like kind of just fits into it.
So this is a little This is a little bit of that. Kind of watching that scene play out when they're going to search for the bodies later on with the task.
Yeah.
Actually, but the paper bag girl here and the art.
It's I think right in the second chapter. Yeah, right. There it is. Yeah, right there.
This is the first picture that they show of this girl, and this Jensen, the detective, this drove him insane. Because this is the one like you're about to get into, the one puzzle piece that did not make sense in all of the murderers. So
you can find out probably later on why.
Well, you do, but I think but to your point earlier, this is why. Again, one of these choices that he essentially made that threw everything off for them. And another reason why, like Leslie alluded to, I think that they weren't even sure if they had the right guy for a good period of time because they were like, how do all these bodies connect? This one doesn't. And meanwhile, we have this guy that we think is the murderer, but meanwhile, he can't connect us to any of the other murders. So like, how do we have the wrong person? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's so much doubtfulness, even when they have the guy sitting in the precinct and they have him caught and he's admitted to it and everything else. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Like, I can't believe that they went that far with this. Like, this guy led them astray so much. Oh yeah. This drove him crazy. Like, I mean, this is spoilers jumping ahead, but by the end of this book, this guy has a mental breakdown, this detective, because of this. Because and I'll get into more of that later because there's other reasons too, but this is part of the reason is why is this body. But go ahead, Leslie, describe it. It's crazy.
So when she was found with the head covered by a brown paper bag, and when it was removed, it was found that she had a fish carefully placed on top of her neck. Smith and Gillian state, they were the two other detectives that were there, state that the killer was also placed another fish on her left breast and a bottle between her legs.
Yeah, very true, Goat.
Yeah. Her hands were placed crossed over her stomach, and freshly ground beef was placed on top of her left hand. Further examination revealed that she was strangled with a cord, and intriguingly, she also showed signs of having been in the water at some point, even though the river was miles away. So the task force speculated that she was yet another victim of the Green River Killer. Right? But by the end of 1983, there were over 13 dead women found. All of them were either sex workers or runaways. And within that population, there were another 24 missing. By 1984, they finally created a task force. It took them from 1982. See, this part pisses me off, right? From 1982 to 1984 to create a fucking task force. You knew there was a serial killer in 1982, but because they were prostitutes, because they were runaways, now you decide in 1984 to finally get a task force. If this were a rich community, there would have been a task force after the third victim.
I think you hit it on the head there, though. They weren't used to this kind of stuff in their town. You know what I mean? They weren't used to.
I don't think they even had the fucking manpower to keep looking.
No, they did. Eventually,
they did.
Yeah,
they did.
Well, eventually, they would get help. But I'm saying when this first started going on, and they were just popping up like fucking
they have
flies.
a homicide. Like there is a homicide.
Yeah, you can't dedicate your whole homicide unit. I'm not trying to justify anything. I'm just saying if there's no hard concrete evidence, how are you going to fucking justify?
What are you talking about?
Bodies, but there's not an actual.
Listen to what you're saying, JT.
No,
just listen to what you're saying.
Evidence to nobody.
Yeah, I gotta go.
They don't have any evidence. Right? So think about it.
There's no reason.
Listen to what you're saying.
I'm just
in 1982 that there's a serial killer. There are 2 deaths per month. You said that yourself.
Yeah, I know.
There is evidence that the same person is doing this. Do you know what happened here in Canada? We don't get even for this. Look, in Canada, we get in history of Canada, we have as many serial killers as there were at the same time in the same year at this time. Okay, in all of Canada's history. Okay. And when Paul Bernardo was just being a rapist, do you know what happened here in Canada? Bumfuck Idaho, Canada. We're not talking about California. We're talking about bumfuck Idaho, Canada. The fucking cops put a rule where women weren't allowed to go out in Scarborough past 8 p.m. They punished women.
Yeah, JT.
Suck it up.
So don't tell me that I don't care if it was the fucking 80s. Okay, don't tell me that they didn't have the resources, because this case, GT, was the most expensive serial killer.
It didn't start off like that.
It should have.
Main reason I agree with Leslie, though, is the fact that, to your point, JT is the one that did point that out, how many bodies were dropping consecutively.
But I said to try to fathom. I said, just try to fathom in your own mind, because I already know in my mind how that works.
Try to fathom. Even know what fathom means.
just fuck off.
But it shouldn't have taken 2 years. She's right. It shouldn't have taken 2 years to put a task force together for this. You know, maybe within the period of 6 months, maybe that's enough time for them to collect this evidence that it's all connected. But I mean, the fact that it took 2 years, that's pretty crazy. I know
they knew in 4 weeks that they had a serial killer at hand because there were 7 bodies.
He's playing devil's advocate. I get it. He's just like, what? Think of it from their perspective. Maybe they didn't know what the hell was going on, right? But I think at the same time, 2 years, that's a long stretch, Jay. That is a long stretch.
But that's also 25. That's 30, 40 years ago.
Still,
it's not today.
Yeah.
Still.
I'm just saying, like,
Still, they did a quicker task force with the BTK. They did a quicker task force with Ted Bundy. They did a quicker task
bigger towns.
force with,
Maybe they had more money, and maybe there was more money in the state.
they were all in the same state.
Those guys, not here.
This guy too.
No, where was this?
He
one?
killed in California. He killed across states.
Yeah, across state.
The
state line.
FBI joined in 1984.
Yes, but that's when it. Okay, yeah. That's when it became
Am I still
across.
staticky?
When they started seeing no.
No, I'm not. Am I coming across staticky?
No, I was just asking.
Oh no. Oh no.
Okay.
No, I don't hear anything.
I
No.
hear it. It's hard to hear.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Anyhow, we all know that it's because they were prostitutes, okay? And because it's the same thing that still goes on today.
They're all
It still
human
goes on
beings.
today. None of this, this all goes on because these are people who he purposely picked because they were prostitutes and runaways.
That's why
He
they're-
admitted to that. He
That's why-
admitted it to that.
Other easy targets, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of it. There's a lot of that goes into.
I see, and I know that he admitted that, but this is why I like to get you riled up. It's not.
No, you like me to get me
it's
riled up
fun.
because you just like to fucking contradict everything that anybody says, even if it's statistical fact. Okay?
Nico's
Look
gonna
at
be
you. You're
sitting
such a
one day-
toddler. Shut up.
Leslie, can you fathom? Leslie, can you fathom? Can you fathom this?
Could you, yeah, can you imagine having a fucking kid like me, Leslie? Like, come on. I
JT
put you
likes
through hell.
No.
JT likes to back up the truck, put it in reverse, tries to run over you a few times, and then he goes a complete different direction. I already knew this the whole time.
And then he'll blame me for being on the street on the first place.
Yeah. Speaking of people that are a little backwards with their warped way of thinking.
Right. So that's another reason. So like you said earlier, that's another reason why I think he can relate or likes this guy so much is because his mentality is so much like him.
That's right.
You know, like it's never my fault. That prostitute gave me gonorrhea. No, but you didn't wrap it up and fucking, it's her fault. She had gonorrhea.
Saran wrap in 1980.
That was a method, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of people doing that. That's a thing.
Sorry. Nico froze.
Oh, Nico's having problems today. Oh, you're okay now.
Yeah,
You're okay.
froze
You're
for a
good. You're
second,
back.
yeah.
You froze for a second.
We thought we scared you off. We thought you pulled a Julie.
Yeah, it's true, Rob. It's true. And it goes on here too. I can't even say it was just the time because it still goes on today. Rob, like we saw it with the Picton case, right?
Yeah.
It can't, it's called the Highway of Tears for a reason.
Easy targets, right? And then
Yeah.
that's what they were kind of trying to. They were also trying to the angle that they took with a lot of the Dahmer stuff towards the end too, is that he was going after poor black people and stuff like that in their horrible neighborhoods because no one was really because murders happen there all the time, disappearances were happening, like things like that, right? Like even though that may not have been his intention, the people that the place that he, whether it was or it wasn't, right? Because
It was. He admitted that it was.
Did he eventually? Because
Not in the book.
Okay. No. But I will see. But that's what I mean. Sometimes
No.
it's hard to say, right? I mean, like
No, in one of his videos, in one of the YouTube videos where he's talking to the interviewer, he admits that.
Okay, because again, it's funny to me because I think that everyone's used to with some of these cases looking for patterns with these guys to try to figure out their way of thinking. When it comes down to it, though, as far as I could tell from at least from the book that I read and some of your notes here, it's hard. There's not always patterns present there, right? That are kind of like, you know what I mean? There isn't. Like sometimes it's just.
Well, yeah, because like every human is different. We're human, right?
He wanted to kill. That's what he said. Like he said it early on, and by the end of it, it's basically and the detective was looking for that picture perfect moment and reasoning as to why he was doing what he was doing, and that's what really drove him to the end,
right?
Like because he wanted an answer. And he didn't get an answer, right? And sometimes that's the case, right? You just it's not so easy. It's not so cookie cutter, like you know what I mean? Like, oh, this is why
it's not.
Did it, right?
Not. But the thing is that they all have different reasons to kill. Sure. They know why, right? He knows why. He admitted it in a video after, right? In an interview after, because some of them like to talk, some of them don't, right? even Dahmer for so long. I don't know why I did it. I don't know why I did it. Right. And then,
yeah. That's my favorite part about Bundy, though, is that this man actually convinced himself that he didn't do it. That's pretty crazy, too. Like, that's a whole other level of crazy that you're so committed to, you know what I mean? Like, to the shtick that you're putting out there that you were like,
man.
I didn't do that.
Stick
Like,
with it.
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. That's another
but
kind of.
Bundy comes into this story.
Oh, I know it does. Go on. That's what I mean. I know he does eventually.
Yeah.
JT's the guy that told me about that originally, to be fair. He told me about that way back when I showed him the book. He told me about
Yeah.
connection. Yeah.
But this book doesn't have to anything on Bundy
No.
either.
Again, it's not.
I didn't read the book.
It's not about
Yeah.
Green River Killer. It really isn't. Like, I mean, it's not. It is and it isn't. It isn't a bio on
It's
him.
more about how a detective's
Yeah.
perspective on how he hunted him.
Yeah, to be fair.
Which,
Yeah.
which is a great perspective, and I think it should be looked at too. Like I said, I have a different opinion of what really went down,
Yeah.
especially the fact that, you know, it took them, they omit the fact that they took them till 1984 to even create a whole fucking task force, you know, like, but a cop will never admit to his faults either.
No.
Right? And that's a shame, because if you admit that you fucked up, people will see your vulnerability and tend to trust you more. The more you say you didn't fuck up, the more, and people know that you did, the least your amount of trust.
I will say, though, I did appreciate the fact that they did continue to let the Jensen guy, even though it became like a cold case of sorts at one point, like they did continue to let him primarily work on this, even going to the 90s, where everybody else had given up hope. You know what I mean? Like, like being solved. And like, that's again, that's jumping ahead, but I kind of really appreciate that about, I mean, at least they had the foresight to actually do that much, like in the long run, is actually somebody actively looking into this kind of stuff, right? Because like this, no one else cared about this, it seems, at that point, right? So because the murders had stopped for a period of time, right? So
they did. And that was when he got married to his third wife. Right? So of the women that had been found, only 5 of the first 10 women were found by the Green River. And he eventually started leaving them in other places. He'd leave them in clusters with more than one woman together. And he would do this because he says he would like to drive by them and relive them, their memories of what he did to them. And he would go back to their bodies and have sex with them after. So, and fondle them, putting more rocks inside of their sexual organs, a lot of messed up shit. So this is the part, I think, to me, that's just so horrible. He would go back as many times until the bodies would start deteriorating with maggots.
Yummy.
Yeah.
Protein.
Yeah, it was fucking that part, like,
yeah, but that's why you started burying them, right? I mean, again, I don't know if they're
no. He started burying them because Rob. Yeah.
Isn't that why he said, though, he was trying to make it so he couldn't get to the body so easily over time because of that?
He couldn't go back to doing that. Yeah, that's why he started burying them. And since it was the mid-'80s, a lot of the evidence could only be saved because they didn't have the technology to test it yet. And by the end of 1984, he's now killed over 40 women. So in 2 years, he killed 40 women. Then all of a sudden,
that's more than 2 a month.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, the task force sees an acute drop in missing girls and victims. And they're left wondering if this killer has died or moved. The investigation was the largest operation in history of the country. Okay. The amount of money needed to implement Kempel's suggestions would far exceed the estimated $2 million. And on February 14th, 1984, Valentine's Day, the skeletal remains of a woman who was later identified as Denise Louise Plager were discovered 40 miles from the city, close to the Interstate 90. She was the first victim to be found that year, but not the last. Over the next 2 months, approximately 9 more bodies would be found. I didn't write this down, but I wanted to make it clear. Just because these bodies were found doesn't mean they were killed at this time. Okay? They were killed beforehand. Because most of these women that were then identified had gone missing back in 82 and 83.
And they were skeletal remains, a lot of them.
Right. And had only been found later. So although there was a portion, so that proves that he stopped killing, and all the bodies that were being found were what he did in the past. So when they say in 2 years he killed over 40 women, he killed way over 40 women in those 2 years. The exact number of how many women this man has killed is unknown. I just want to make that clear to whoever's watching. Even he doesn't know how many women he killed, because that's how many women he killed.
Crazy.
Think about it.
Yeah.
It's fucking nuts.
I mean, the way they talked about it in the book too, there could be somewhere even down the road from now, they could unearth something still, because a lot of this shit paved over and built upon in the places that he said that he actually had placed the bodies, right? So, and if that was
fucking scary.
Yeah, we might still have not heard that. I don't know, Leslie. I didn't jump ahead in your notes here, but did you?
Yeah.
Is there any more recent news on anything about this guy? Maybe you want to wait to talk about that, I guess. But I'm just curious: is there or is there not?
So I was just going to mention, there isn't any more recent news right now.
Okay.
However, they do keep closing a whole bunch of cases lately because DNA technology is now everywhere. And like, I think it was a couple months ago, I heard of a dead body that has been unidentified for 45 years.
Wow.
And they were finally able to identify it 2 months ago.
That's crazy.
Okay. So, and they're so backed up.
Yeah.
With so many cases. If you find out, and what's really important about even identifying these unknown bodies is once you identify a body, you already know if the body was murdered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the method of murder, right? So once you identify a name, you can go back in time to see what this person's life was like. Because then now you know who to question.
Right.
Now
who might have been in their life at that time?
Who might have been at their life at that time? What were they doing? Then those cases are reopened, these cold cases. But it's so important to ID these people, because if you don't, you never find out what their story was.
Is this guy alive?
I think he's dead already. I think he died in 2011. I'm sorry.
It was up there, yeah, because it was still. It was on. I mean, that was televised. That fucking a lot of that court, right?
Well, yeah, because he was only caught in 2001. Yeah, he's still alive. He's in Walla Walla, Washington. Yeah, I wrote that in my notes. He's in Walla Walla, Washington.
Rob says that's the new genealogy method now. It's amazing. There you go.
I know, but Rob, it's just like this technology is here, but the amount of cases, there's a backlog of years, decades and decades and decades and decades back that they have to catch up on. Many of these victims, it's so backed up that many of these victims, their whole entire family lineage is dead. Right? Yeah. So I mean, like,
there's too many, man. There's way too many, especially in the.
But you know what? They keep trying. They keep doing it, right?
The sad truth of it also is that to put the time and resources and money into this as well, if it's that backed up, is another thing entirely, right? I mean, maybe they should start focusing on that and maybe not so much money into their prisons over there.
Right?
The U.S. is fucked, bro.
Why don't you get rid of anybody who's in prison for weed? Right? You'll cut your costs by 80%.
Yeah.
And take that money and invest it in
So
actually catching real criminals.
so many things are backwards, but yeah, not get into that.
Yeah.
Because that can, yeah,
That's a whole other different conversation. But you're right, you know, like it's crazy. So this is a part that I added in that I found, which cops, I guess, will do anything when they're desperate. Over the next 2 months, approximately 9 more bodies would be found. And in mid-April, a volunteer task force worker and psychic, Barbara Cubic Pattern. So this isn't the first time I've heard of cops who are hunting serial killers getting psychics.
This happened.
This happened.
We actually just talked about it too on The Wire season 1. There was a joke about the cop trying to solve a murder, and they sent her to a psychic essentially to help him. And they said that it actually helped him solve a case at one point in his career. Yeah, no, that's. I mean, they're just like when they run out of options, they're like, yeah, might as well. Rob with a comment here too for you, Leslie.
Yeah, well, yeah, I watched them when they solved a murder. You know what? I wish this was the case, but this is what happened with this psychic. So Barbara had a vision that another woman's body would be found close to the Interstate 90. And Barbara immediately contacted the police and told them about her vision, but became increasingly frustrated when they failed to act on the new information. Taking matters into her own hands, she and her daughter set out to find the woman. Following the leads revealed by her vision, Barbara and her daughter eventually came across another body. Immediately after the discovery, the 2 women drove to a nearby search area that was patrolled by police. When she informed one of the officers of her discovery, she was rebuffed and even threatened with arrest for obstruction of the guarded perimeter. Angered, Barbara informed reporters that were stationed nearby of her discovery. And finally, members of the task force approached her as she talked with the reporters and asked her to show them the body. Shortly thereafter, the police were confronted with the gruesome discovery. Okay, so here's my take on this. Okay, now Denise was already found by Interstate 90 when Barbara said she had a vision of a body in Interstate 90. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
This was already knowledge, but oh my God, I had a vision. Like, you knew already. You were part of the volunteer task force. Don't tell me that this came to you. But what did come to her was the possibility that there would be more bodies along that area. Right?
Okay.
But she used it and said, no, my psychic abilities are telling me that there's a body there, right? It's just frustrating when this fucking shit happens like this. I don't know. I don't believe in psychics, so that's why I'm just kind of like.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
Just wait, no, a little bit weird.
Bunch of horse shit, personally.
So this is what they found. They found the decomposing remains of Amina Agashif. She was 36. So again, not as young as the other victims, right? She was last seen on July 7th, 1982, walking home from her work at a restaurant in downtown Seattle. And Amina did not fit the description of many of the other victims. She was older than the other victims and a waitress, not a prostitute. Okay. Amina, sorry. My son did a trick on me today. I asked him to print out the sheets for me, and instead of putting the stapler on the left-hand side, he put it on the right-hand side, so it's fucking me up. And he was laughing at me. No, he's not. He just does shit like this to fuck me up on purpose.
Yeah.
Also, she was also in a stable relationship at the time of her disappearance, and she was a mother of 2. So this victim is completely different than all the other victims.
Okay.
But although there were obvious differences between Amina's lifestyle and those of the other victims, and the location of where her body was disposed, investigators believe that she was the victim of the Green River Killer. Moreover, she was listed as one of the killer's first victims.
Yeah.
Even though several murders prior to her disappearance matched the MO of the killer. So on May 26, 2 children playing on Jovita Road in Pierce County were shocked when they discovered a skeleton. The police and task force were immediately alerted to the new finding. Following a medical examination, it was discovered that the remains were that of 15-year-old runaway Colleen Brockman. She's only 15. Okay. The investigators still had no new leads to the identity of the killer apart from the location of the bodies and the shoe print. So the shoe print was a size 11. Okay. So they had a shoe print, but he was just, I don't know, man, really smart. After almost 3 years, the murderous killing spree continued. So this is where Ted Bundy comes in to offers to help. Okay. I'm not going to read this entire thing. I'm just going to kind of like
Sum it up.
Ted Bundy didn't help catch, and this is a misconception because a lot of people think that Ted Bundy helped catch Gary Ridgway. He didn't. What he did was provide a good profile. Nico's thing is, yeah.
It's okay. 'Cause, no, I was hearing it from you too as well. I was trying to
From
text
me?
back and forth.
Are you still hearing me?
No. I think it's got something to do on that side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I
no,
don't hear it.
No, I know. Now it's gone. I looked up because I was trying to figure out. I looked up and now I don't hear it. Right. So I have a feeling it's the link.
Nico's?
Right? Yeah, I think it's on Nico's side.
Yeah.
But it could be just the internet or whatever. I don't know. You know. Now you sound better, yeah. Because I was even getting it from Rob. I was asking Rob what it sounded like on that end. I didn't want to interrupt, right?
Yeah.
So, but no, now it's sounding clear. I mean, you can sum up that part while we wait for him to come back. I can't put up any comments, guys. I'll read them to you. If anything, we'll read them out. But
Yeah, no, Ted Bundy, what he didn't, that's a common misconception when it comes to Gary Ridgway. A lot of people believe that
he just got off.
Pardon?
I think he just got off on going to hear the stories. And to be honest,
no, he actually got off on the fact that the same guy, one of the detectives investigating Gary Ridgway, was the detective that caught him. The FBI guy, Douglas.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
Right?
I think in my head that he's also liking that attention.
Right. So Ted Bundy, always loved attention. Right. That was his thing.
Of course.
Right.
I mean, just even going over there, he was all excited.
Right. But Douglas is the guy who caught him. So, and he worked for the FBI, and he was working with Tom Jensen and the rest of the task force on looking for the Green River killer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like what the FBI did, what Ted Bundy did was get together and actually sit down and try to profile him.
Yeah. That's what they were saying. They made a big profile. It was trying to, I think it was probably, like I said, it was probably one of those first time. I mean, who better to get a profile about a serial killer than from a serial killer themselves? You know what I mean?
Right. It's like that show Mindhunter.
Yeah. Especially if they're similarly based. You know what I mean? In a sense.
Ed Kemper helped profile so many serial killers. I think Ramirez was a big one that he helped get. Right.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I mean. It's something they do. You know what? I think it is just to pass the time too while they're in jail.
What else are they gonna do? Well, let me show off how brilliant I am.
Yeah.
Because this is how smart I am, dude. You're not so smart because guess where you are? You're in jail.
I mean, look how long it took them to catch a guy with 82% fucking IQ. I mean, in a sense, really.
An IQ of 82, yeah.
It doesn't take much to fool fucking people, right? I mean, like naiveness sometimes is the best medicine for people. Like, it just thinks stupid, really. Sometimes if you just think stupid, you might be able to figure stuff out a lot easier. You know what I mean? They were obviously reading so much into it by this point. Like, I mean, to get that, they were reading too far into it at one point to be getting the help from him, right?
So what's interesting is that even though he had, this is what Nico was saying earlier, right? When Nico was saying earlier that
he's back.
the frustration behind the police after interrogating him, right? Because he only had an IQ of 82, right? Yeah. And Nico was saying, was he really that stupid, or was he really that smart when it came to the killings, right? And to answer Nico's question, he really was smart when it came to the killings, but book smart,
there's not a lot of people like that, yeah.
Right? So I mean, like, he knew what he was doing. So when he was playing stupid, he was playing stupid. That's how I see things, right? Yeah. Because
I'll give you what my old man
if he really didn't, like, because he acts like when he's being interrogated, he's like by the police, right? Before he's sentenced to life. Okay. When he's being interrogated by the police, in the book and in my researcher, he's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe it was over there. But then I went and I looked at the interviews.
Did you see?
On YouTube?
Yeah, they took him out, and they took him out for fucking Father's Day to go looking for fucking bodies.
That's in the
book. That's in the book too. But I'm talking about later on, years later, when he's describing what he did, what happened. It does not sound like a human with only an 82 IQ.
No,
he's very direct. He remembers a lot more of what happened than what he told the police. I guess he's already in jail for life, right? Yeah. But the thing is that I think that Nico, like how the book leaves that in question. Was he stupid? Does he really not know where it was? How do you not remember this or that, right? Mm-hmm. And to the point where I think he did it on purpose so that they can question whether or not he was really the Green River Killer.
Well, the part that they show in the book where I think you could say that, like, it was either coincidence or brilliance on his part for that specific moment is that the Jensen detective gets very frustrated because everywhere he keeps taking him over time has now been, oh, there's a school there now. Oh, they paved over this now. Oh, and this man has lived there all his life. So he knows the happenings of going ons of these locations that he says that he's dropped these bodies. So for all they know, he could be telling the truth, or he could have strategically either placed them or knew that they couldn't get any additional bodies on him as a result of him saying, oh yeah, I buried it over here, knowing that they're not going to be able to find it. Yeah. Right. That's what he says. Like, oh, I guess there's a scene in it where the detective makes a joke because he's being a smart ass. He's getting so frustrated at this situation where he's like, he's fucking with us. Like, he basically says, he's like, oh yeah, I guess we're just going to have to get a crew down here now to tear up the ground. And he's like, oh, you can do that? He's like, no, I'm fucking joking. Like, he's just like, of course he can. We just can't just get a bunch of people down here and tear up the whole like pavement now because of you saying that there might be a body there, right? Like, it's ridiculous. Like, and that's what frustrates it so much, because he's in a later half of his career at this point. Like, he's close to retirement at this point in his career, right? So like, and he's been chasing this guy for 20 years, and he can't even get the self-satisfaction of him leading them to more bodies to be able to close this case. And again, I'm jumping ahead here, but I think it's something like after the book ends, they say that they continued having to interrogate him in their own special task force that was assigned to this guy outside of like his actual cell. Like you said, they went out for Father's Day and everything else, Jay, for like 180 days or something crazy like that. They said like this guy took them on a wild goose chase of all goose chases. And like Leslie said, there was moments of like, oh, I don't know. I don't remember where I did it, or I'm really trying here. Was he? I don't know, man. It's hard to say.
So what I'm trying to say is that I believe he wasn't.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? I believe he knew exactly what he was doing. And the only reason that I believe, because up until the end of this book and my research, and then after when I watched the videos, up until before I watched the videos, I was in the same question as you, Nico.
Yeah.
And then I watched his interviews.
Okay, so that added a lot to it.
And when I watched his interviews, I started putting two and two together, and I realized this guy isn't going to tell him where all the or confirm all the other victims because some of them are out of state. And what happens when they're out of state, Nico?
It's another jurisdiction that takes care of you.
It's another jurisdiction, and guess what? You're up for the death penalty.
Yeah, because there's no promises anymore.
And up until there, he made a deal to confess.
Or 49, sorry.
But he only confessed to the ones around the Green River, not the other bodies that were found outside.
Why would you? Yeah. Why would you? He's not that. Like,
but
this
that's
is what I mean. You gotta act. My dad says you gotta act. You gotta act smart. You gotta be. What the fuck was it? You gotta be smart to act stupid.
Right. And that's exactly what he did. And that's what I'm trying to tell Nico, right? I mean, like at one point when that detective is frustrated, and even I was thinking, and I'm like, oh, well, he does have an IQ of only 82, right? I mean, like they know this. So why, don't they just accept that maybe he just doesn't remember? And then the minute you guys got to watch his interviews on YouTube.
Oh, I seen them. They're fucking nuts.
He's so coherent. He's proud of what he did. Like this guy knows. He knows.
It's a totally different thing.
Yeah, he totally took those cops for a fucking ring around the rosy there.
He loved the limelight, bro.
Well, like to your point, the Father's Day thing, they had a scene in the book here where he's like, "Happy Father's Day, guys," to the cops, and then he's like, maybe after.
But he said that.
Jay, in the book, book they showed that, Jay. They did the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, maybe after this we can go out and maybe grab some food, like you know what I mean? Like he's enjoying his time out of the cell. Essentially,
of course, bro. You're in fucking solitary confinement, bro. Of course you would enjoy it.
They put him in like a safe house where there's a few cops around the clock sitting in there with him. He had a cot. He was getting meals brought to him. Of course, he stretched it out 180 something days or whatever. He was loving it, right? Like, that's
his last little bit of freedom, bro.
That's what was so awesome about that scene, because it really left you as the reader wondering, though, at the same time, because you could tell that the detective's getting frustrated, and that was my favorite part of the book. Quite frankly, was the ending, because like by the end of it, he was looking for the picture perfect confession from this guy, and then put like a nice little bow on it. And like, this was my career's work right here. Right.
Yeah. To tell my guy,
he didn't get the satisfaction of the answers he was expecting from him when he was interrogating him. And for that reason, he finally got something out of him where he basically just said, "I like to kill. Like I wanted to kill." Like, and then he's like, okay. And he
enjoyed it. He was so disassociated with it.
Yes, disassociation. Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I mean? That
he
did.
Definitely.
They were objects. They were just objects. They didn't mean nothing.
And he
could have been you or me, I think. At one
walks
point.
out of the room, Jay, and breaks down, starts crying. Like his partner came and like pat him on the back. He's like, "Good job" or whatever. And he said he had a mental breakdown. Like he had to step away from the case after that.
Well, think about it, bro. How many of those cops would have had to drink? One cop, I remember in the interview they were doing on the thing, said, he goes, "It was just too much after 40. It's too many bodies and too many deaths that you see. Too many." It's true, man. How do you just go and keep doing that? And the Gold said it when in that thing that earlier in the chat about how do these cops do and go home every night, bro? It's true. When maybe not so much over here, one thing, but when you're doing something like this, when there's hundreds of fucking bodies popping up all over the fucking state, and you're going to, if you're, part of that cops, that division, wherever the fuck it is, and you have to go to all those scenes. Imagine just being that guy that has to be there.
Right.
We don't even talk about the coroner guys. Like, we don't talk about those guys.
But that's why, at least again, because I'm coming from the books, like the detective in this, when he did was go home and start renovating his house. Like that's what he do in his spare time to get away and to kind of
clear his mind.
Exactly. So he did all these crazy renovations around his house, some things that weren't even necessary, because like towards the end of the case, he went in a room and he's just like, "I'm redoing the bathroom." He just like demolished everything in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I think it was in one scene, right? And yeah, exactly. What's in the box? Exactly. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's the insanity it kind of drove him to, right? And then that was his kind of like way to clear his mind from all this. And that's the other thing, like you just touched on, Jay, that was said in the book too. He said, how do I remember every single detail about this case that I investigated 20 years ago? And you're telling me that you cannot remember where you placed these bodies. That's what he, like, to your point, like, because that stuff,
or their names.
Right. He's like, how do I know every single detail about this? And you can't tell me shit. That's what really,
because the cop cared.
But right, that's true too. That's true
right?
too. Yeah,
that's a good point too.
That's a good point.
The other one didn't give a fuck. I told you, they were just material objects to him.
Yeah.
He did not care.
Yeah.
Disposable.
Well, that's how he saw prostitutes too, right?
Yeah. That's what that's just the way he was, man. Like, I mean, and you know, if you walked by on the street next to him, you would never in a million years think, okay, you might think, look at that dirty pervert stash or whatever they had back in the day, but you wouldn't think, oh my God, this guy's just killed over fucking 70 bodies that he's confessed to. You know what I mean? I mean,
no,
now
he confessed to 49.
49, but I mean,
but they believe he killed over 70.
Yeah,
and he says it's well over 90.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. He's pushing the 100. He's pushing the 100 body mark, and that's the sad thing. Like, you'd be so sad, like Nico.
He's frozen again, poor guy.
It's all right. It's all right. We're all here, buddy. But yeah, no, I mean, that I'll tell you right now is the sad thing is that one person you can see where the cops cared. If I guess if that's how they're describing it in the book there, right? And where he's so disassociated with the whole thing, like this is just like a, you know, maybe that is that 82%, but maybe like you said, in other things he's a lot smarter. When it comes to, you know, think about it, Leslie. When you have that kind of drive and you need to if you have that kind of fucking crazy sex drive, and that's what you need to do to satisfy it, think about how you would become smarter and smarter at it. You get what I'm saying?
Well, because you keep getting away with it, right? So if you keep getting away with it, you keep getting creative and you get cocky, and then but that's also how you slip up.
You're always ahead, and then you're always
ahead. But that's how they all slip up too.
Eventually, but
yeah,
look how long it took. Look how many people. I mean, at that rate, but I mean, it actually didn't take them long.
Technically, he was sloppy in 1984, and technically he was sloppy again when they got a warrant to his house in 1987.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So he was sloppy. Okay, but so were the cops.
Yeah. I think everybody at that time.
So he would have been caught a lot. He would have been in jail a lot earlier if the cops weren't sloppy. You get what I'm saying? But he got sloppy way before that. So he wasn't smart in evading the police for 20-somewhat years. It's the police that weren't smart enough to look into his background further. That mixed with the technology. There you go. Because if he were really smart, he wouldn't have left any DNA at the scenes.
Yeah, right? But I mean, too, at that time, you don't think about it either because you don't think they're ever going to fucking think about it in the 80s. You wouldn't think that they were going to eventually in your lifetime have something to come out like that. But that was something that evolved really quickly and became a natural practice. It became an actual practice with the police departments, right? Because at one point it wasn't, right? At one point it wasn't concrete enough. They didn't know how to do it concrete. Now they can fucking, like you said, we can pinpoint stuff from fucking billions of years ago. You get what I'm saying? In DNA cells. So I mean, they know how to pick it apart now, right? So, but back then, and think about it, that's only 40 years ago, Leslie. We've gone through a lot if you think about it. In 40 years when it comes to technology, and the way they find people, and that's why you don't see a lot of this anymore, or you hear about it at least, right? I mean, maybe not this number count at least.
Right. So here's where he was smart. Okay.
Yes, Nico said he'll be back on. He's just having some issues.
Right. So he was like purposely moving the bones around in an effort to confuse the investigation. Mm-hmm. So this is why I'm saying, you know, like when the book the book itself is making you question whether he was the real Green River Killer or not.
Yeah.
When the real fact is that he was just not as stupid as his IQ claimed he was. Okay, so
But
like
that's to your point too. You like you said, that's a kind of a book smarts that they test you on with the IQ, right?
well, no, IQ is your general just
I never had an
intelligence.
IQ test, to be honest with you, so I wouldn't know how.
You could take them online.
Yeah, but I always thought they laughed and lied and all that shit. You know,
Huh?
I always thought they had those weird. I didn't think they were actually really that real online like that. But
I don't know. I mean, like, I think he learned
as you went along,
as he went along, right?
yeah. Plus, you're probably hearing stuff about other serial killers in the news.
Oh yeah. Well, hello. When you're
Around
like,
that time.
when you've got
Yeah.
like 5 other serial killers killing at the same time, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you get to learn and fuck around with a lot of things to make it, outside the
Right.
box, so people don't try not to, you try not to leave that same pattern. And fuck, man, I'm with you when you say that. Also, I mean, they should have done it. They should have done it. I just like to play devil's advocate, but it would have been nice for them to get this before it went to that kind of body count. Is what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah. Had the FBI been involved back
But they should have been
earlier
involved
than that,
a lot quicker, man. Even back then,
of course.
even then too. Like, I'm not trying to say this is not the 70s where you can't pick up just a fucking rotary phone. You know what I mean? That's the 80s and all that. You know what I mean? They can call each other back and forth, say, listen, we need some FBI help. Just send the people down here. I'm pretty sure they could have done that in the 80s, right? It couldn't have been that hard.
I don't know. I just think that at this point, like,
Remember we talked
I'll
about
give you an
stuff
example.
earlier than
this
this?
stuff, JT, this stuff even goes on today.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
Like we talked
It
about
still
it
goes
even
on
earlier.
today. It still goes on today. It goes on here in Canada. It goes on in the US. Okay. Nobody cares about certain groups of people.
Well, of
They're
course.
not priorities, and it's not right. Right?
Well,
I'll
I
give
know.
you another example. In Texas, 3 weeks ago. Okay.
Okay.
This heiress, some heiress who's also a teacher, elementary school teacher.
Okay.
She went for a jog. She was kidnapped and murdered. Okay. While she was missing for 3 days. It took the cops only 3 days to find her and it's been 3 weeks, and now they confirmed the death. They caught the killer. Okay. And they confirmed her by way of death, and they charged the killer, and the killer's in jail.
Well, they have a standard now. 48, first 48. Remember, they have a standard now. They have to have everything within the first 48. It's like
She was
otherwise you're
missing.
fucked.
She was missing, right? Okay. Do you think if she was a poor indigenous woman or a prostitute that they would have worked on this right away like this?
I don't
They
know.
wouldn't
Right
care.
nowadays, I don't. Nowadays,
wouldn't
I would
care.
think there'd be a little
No,
bit
they
more.
don't. They
a little
don't.
bit more knowledge.
It continues on and on and on. And the excuse is always, well, they live, and I hate this phrase, they live a high risk lifestyle. Look,
So do I.
really? So you're telling me that, the oldest profession on earth gives you the right to kill her?
No.
Because that's what you're telling me,
I know.
right?
I'm not disagreeing with you in that part.
No, I'm
I
not
still
saying you're
wonder.
telling me. I'm just saying this whole
It's
justice system, right? That's what the justice system is screaming out to the society, right? That you have to be, you have to have money for us to give a fuck, or you have to have a certain social life for us to give a fuck, because it's your fault if you're a prostitute because you're living a high risk lifestyle and you get murdered. Okay, she has a lifestyle where she's getting paid to have sex. She's not getting paid to be murdered. Nobody has the right to murder anybody.
No,
It's
I'm
just
not
like a
agreeing. I
guy
don't
saying,
disagree with you.
it's just like a girl wearing a mini skirt and she got raped, and the guy saying, well, she was asking for it because she was wearing a mini skirt. She was dressed like a slut.
There's more deserving people out there than hookers, if you want to do it like that.
But do you understand what
I
I'm
get what
trying to
you're-
say?
I
But
know, I
that's the
totally understand.
mentality.
I know
That's
what
the
you think.
mentality. So like a woman can't wear whatever the fuck she wants because she's asking to be raped?
You know what it is too. Now you get a high profile person in there, like a high profile person and whatever. Then you know what happens? You end up it's on the news a hell of a lot more. So the police don't want that as well, right? And then they see it's always about what they want at the end, right? They think of how they think of themselves. If they know with prostitutes, they're not going to be on unless you get a reporter that's really into it and really wants to, crack this case and stay on it, and they'll be putting everybody's face on the news all the time, right? Just to keep it in people's heads. It's the way even the media does it too. It's not no help from them at all either, right?
And then it's forgotten. It's no longer good news. Like it's no longer news after 3 weeks. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. It's up there, it happens, and then boom, gone. Okay, they haven't found anything yet, so it's dead. Next, on to the next.
Yeah. So
I've skipped quite a bit because we've touched on it already, like from the book, like through cross talking.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to talk briefly about how he used his son, which is also in the book.
Yeah, this is fucked up. And to find out what his son does now, eh?
I don't know what his son does now. And but I'm going to tell you why I didn't look into his son, because
it's hard too. You're not going to find
I don't want his son to be talked about in the present.
Yeah.
It's not his fault what his father did.
No, not at all.
That's fair.
Right? And I think he deserves his privacy, his own life. Get on with it, right? So I do name his first name. I do know he changed it. I do know he's living a different life now.
Yeah.
But I don't want to talk about his present life. It's not his fault. And I don't think he should be paying for his father's sins. Because what happens is like when you put this out publicly, where are their kids now? Like
well said. Yeah.
I know because I also watched that documentary, Sins of the Father. So it does go basically on that side. So you hear him talking without the camera on him.
It's hard for people to exist in a world outside of this shit. You know what I mean? Like
oh shit, bro. Imagine that.
Being associated with this. Yeah, well that's that's
most of us don't want to be associated with our dads already, man. Fuck. And I mean, and then having your dad do this, right? Like fuck.
Yeah, and sorry about my internet issues tonight, folks. I mean, that happens. The nice thing about having 3 people on screen, though, is that I'm not
show must go on.
That's what happens with the live show. Sometimes the internet's not your friend, right? It happens. We've all
here,
right?
Yeah, all of us have experienced this.
Yeah.
So this is how he used the son. He would purposely leave out his son's toys and belongings in the backseat of his car. So whenever he lured in women, they wouldn't think that he was the Green River Killer, because he was so notoriously known. Prostitutes were talking amongst each other, right? So he purposely didn't kill all prostitutes that he would take so that they can go back and tell other prostitutes that it was okay, so that they can be lured in.
Yeah.
See,
he's not so stupid.
He's
not so stupid. Right?
That's the scary part of it, is that there's people out there. This is when I say to women that some women, not for anything. I'm not trying to categorize anything, Leslie. Okay, don't freak out and don't. But when they're raised naively, it really fucks them up. If they're not talked about, like, I mean, you've always been raised smart. Like, don't get me wrong. You've known how the life is outside, and you don't get in the car with all the others. But there's some still, even to this day, there's some women and girls out there that do not get it.
And men too.
Men. Well, I know, but what I'm saying is, and I don't know how to put this lightly, but a lot of women, it doesn't matter what the size of the man, could be physically overpowered by a man. It's just body size, right? And they have to remember that sometimes, because some of them can get a little bit.
I hear a lot of victim blaming here. Is that
no,
you hear?
I am not.
Do you hear some? I kind of hear that. So, like, you should know better. That's the kind of way that you're telling me. They should know better.
If they were raised better, is what I am saying. It's not.
Oh, so if they were raised better.
Yes. If they're raised better. You were raised properly. I mean, I would believe.
Hey, that's That's a fine line that you're dancing.
I'm walking a fine line. I know.
That's no, I'm just saying you could quickly veer off into the in the direction of people saying, well, if women shouldn't dress like that if they don't want.
No, I'm not
That's
saying
the conversation we were having while you were being frozen, right? It's like saying, well, she was wearing a mini skirt. She was asking to be raped.
Yeah.
No,
nah, man, no, you're veering that same line. Look, a human being shouldn't, in general, a human being has the right to feel safe no matter where they are. It's never the victim's fault.
I'm not saying it's victim.
Okay. So take away this idea that women are naive. They should know better or they were raised better. Look,
I'm even like this.
Everybody has the right to live a peaceful, happy life. The problem isn't the naive woman. The problem is the piece of shit of a man who thinks of doing this. That's what the problem is.
I understand that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying people.
Yeah, you are.
General.
Yeah, you are.
This reminds me of there's an old Chappelle joke that he made in his stand-up one time where he talks about encountering a woman who's dressed like provocatively, and he basically says he's like, oh, he says that she freaked out on him because he made a comment. He's like, oh, just because I'm dressed this way does not make me a whore. He's like, well, I'm sorry, miss, but you are wearing a whore's uniform. So, like, because he cut it back. He made the joke because he was talking about a policeman earlier in his stand-up, but he brought it right back around about wearing a police uniform and stuff like that. And although it's taken out of context, it kind of plays into what you're basically saying about that kind of stuff. And you got to watch out about that stuff, Jay, because there is a whole kind of like rape culture shit that goes along with this kind of thing about that people prey upon women and then they try to blame the woman for the way that she cock teases the man or whatever.
I'm not blaming the woman at all. But
there is a lot. You got to watch what you say when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, because I agree
with what you're saying, and that's why I'm trying not to get. I was trying not to get any.
No, I'm not saying you're
wrong, but I even said it. I understand that because, like, I mean,
to that. Yeah,
because okay, let's just leave it at that. Let's just say people should always be taught
respectful of everybody, period.
Yeah. Taught and be respectful of everybody, people in general.
Whether they're naive or super intelligent, whether if you got
are raised by their fathers only. There is, it works like that, and people that are raised only by their mothers, and it just works like that. You know what I mean? So I let's say people in general. Sometimes I forget where I'm on screen here. I'm not just with you guys. But I don't think I went too. I don't think I took it too far. I walked that line pretty smoothly. If you guys didn't bring it up, I probably could have got away with it, but I wasn't going that far.
So let's move along, okay? Like Nico says, moving on.
I haven't heard that in a while. Yeah,
that's why I tried to break it. I tried to mix it up with a Chappelle joke. Yeah, go ahead.
So he would. In one of the interviews that I watched, he described how he would pull out his ID from his wallet to show the prostitute and put a finger over his name and purposely open on the other side of the wallet a picture of his son.
Yeah. Fucking guy, man.
So he would say, oh, that's my son. Oh, you're a dad. Oh, okay. So they must be a nice guy. He's not the Green River Killer, right? So that they would be more comfortable to go with him. Once they got to his home, he would show them his son's room and put them at ease. He says he was asked over 50 times if he was the Green River Killer.
Could you imagine?
Okay. One time, he actually let his son meet one of the victims.
Yeah. I think he even might have brought him along and killed him on the outside while he was in the car waiting.
Yeah, so he picked up a prostitute and he was in the car with him. He took her to the South Airport area and told his son to stay in the car. He went for a walk with her and he did the deed and then killed her. However, he swears his son didn't see anything.
Yeah, they show this part in the book.
But they call her Jane Doe.
So yeah, he picks this woman up with his son in the
That's
car.
Fucked up, man. No.
And then he kind of goes off into the woods with her. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go help her out with something or whatever. And he takes her into the woods and then it leaves the kid kind of sitting in the car watching them. Like you see how they depict it in the art, like watching him.
Yeah.
In the wind, essentially, off into the distance, and then they show him. This is what I found weird too. But then they cut to a scene of him with a tear rolling down his cheek as he's rethinking of these moments in prison, like this is when he has already been arrested. Like he's reliving these moments, and they try to depict in the art that he's feeling some sort of remorse for whatever reason. I don't know. I didn't get that.
However, see, that's what I got. See, that's another thing about perspective that you and I were talking about. I was talking about in the beginning. Again, this is the perspective from the detective's son, right? When you look at the interviews, and I don't know if this book was written before the interviews were done or after, because I'm not quite sure when the interviews were done. I know the interviews were done way after he was convicted and everything was all settled in, right?
2000 something. But
in the interviews, Nico, he acts like his son was a liability and
didn't feel like he would
and he proudly used his son to put these prostitutes at
one
ease.
of the detectives even asked, what would if your son would have seen, what would you have done? And he said, I probably would have killed him.
Yeah.
He's actually comes out of his mouth.
So the graphic novel originally came out in 2011.
Yeah, I think the interviews were done a little, maybe a year or two after that.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that. My stats aren't factual on that. It's just assuming.
Okay.
So, because he's done quite a few along the years. I think some were before and some were after. That's why I'm not 100% sure. But he's a talker. He's proud of what he did. Like JT said, don't think what this book portrays about him. I personally don't believe that what this book portrays about him being remorseful in any way or being
he must be good at acting because he did cry.
Well, yeah, because
when there was the family statements, he did. Okay? He did have some tears, but there was that one time when that guy, the old man there, that guy, he actually forgave him.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they worked that scene into the book. It just fell out of place because it wasn't really focused on that. And it kind of was in the middle of him. Like, obviously, the artist had to depict these.
Oh, he froze again.
It's okay. He had to depict something about the scenes, probably, that we'll figure out when he comes back. But yeah, no, I mean, like I was saying, even the guy that looked like in the interview, he looked like the Colonel Sanders, and he was saying that he had forgiven them, and that's about the only time, unless they edited that part out, like and put that in where he had the tear. That's about the only time you actually really seen him. Right, so he of like a blubbering thing. There you go.
Oh, okay, you're back. Sorry, what you were saying? It was depicting. The book was depicting. That's when you froze.
Yeah, well, I just thought it was weird that the artist had to find a way to show these scenes of these things that happen, right? So maybe that was his way of doing it. Maybe making it so he was reminiscing about these things or rethinking about these murders that occurred, right? And maybe that's why he worked in this whole thing with the tear. It just fell out of place, and I didn't know if that was something that actually occurred. But Jay said that he did tear up at a couple of different incidents, so maybe.
But we don't know how much of that's
during trial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But we don't know how much that's real because we all know that once you're in trial in front of a jury.
Well, these were victims, Steve. These were victim afterwards.
Yeah.
They get to tell them right before he gets sentenced.
Play it up at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
They already made sure at this point that he was never going to be getting out of jail for the remainder of his what did they say? Given life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's kind of weird when you hear some of the victim statements, because for them to sit there and I can understand a lot of them freaking out, but for that guy to have that and say that to forgive, that brought chills to me.
Yeah, but right? I mean, like that's a bigger human that I could possibly ever dream of being.
I know.
Right?
I mean, I couldn't imagine being that guy, right? But yeah.
So,
go on, sorry, Leslie.
In 1987, they circled back to Gary. Okay, and this time, more witnesses were coming forward with placing him at the scene of more victims before they were found murdered while they were still alive, right? So
once
this
they knew
time,
that truck, the pickup truck too, once that came
right,
in,
but they knew of the pickup truck in 1984 too, right? So now in 87, with all this information, they finally actually even get a search warrant.
Are we saying
They get a
97 or 87?
87 still. So they finally get a search warrant to his home, and they come up completely empty-handed. Now, as low as of an IQ Gary had, he was smart enough not to keep any of his trophies at home. That doesn't mean he didn't take any trophies.
No, yeah, we find out later. You know what he
right?
takes.
So you know why he didn't have the trophies at home?
Is he smart?
No, because he's like grossly mentally ill.
Yeah.
He would take them to work with him. He'd leave them lying around casually in the women's washroom.
Yeah.
Okay, and wait for one of the women at work to swipe them, and then get off when he saw them wear them.
Sorry, I almost repeated the way you said that. I probably Nico's like he caught me because I went on Earth, and he was like,
Woman.
Oh, yeah.
First, sorry.
Sorry.
That's so gross though. That is demented. That really is disgusting. Like that's
Yeah.
There's something special for that. I don't know what that's called, bro. I really don't. There's something. Did you see the lady that was interviewed from his work at Kenworth?
No, I didn't see that one.
No, she was fucking on some heavy benzos, man, or something.
Oh,
she
I'm
looked
sure.
like she had quite too much lorazepam. She was talking like, "Hey, guys,
Oh my
I
god.
knew, I knew Gary, but I knew something was up with him."
Oh my god. I have to watch that one.
Oh,
Oh,
that's called Sins of the Father. Yeah, it's a little bit fucked.
You both are making me want to watch these videos now. By the way.
oh, you have to,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Oh,
That's a real That's a documentary one.
I'm gonna have to now because I want more of this story now, man. And that's why I'm loving everything Leslie's telling us here tonight because I really loved revisiting this. Honestly,
Yeah.
They don't give him too much like that airtime. Like they don't give him too much of that fucking here. That's why they've mixed him in with stories like Ted Bundy and him. You know what I mean? They won't give him because why should they anymore? That's why most of these are put out by other.
because what happens when you give these serial killers too much time, they start getting glorified.
Of course, their heads get full.
Right?
And then you get copycats.
Right.
Too.
That's the problem.
Again, low IQ didn't mean he wasn't smart when it came to his criminal activities. Here's another thing he did. He said that if a woman scratched him, he would cut off her fingernails. ID. DNA.
Smart, man. He was smart even about DNA because he must have heard about it.
He flaunted the fact that he got away with this for so long. He even said, at least I was the best at one thing. Oh, JT now froze. Oh, yeah. Once
if you're good at one, if you do one thing well, might as well do it. Keep doing it. Fuck. I was always told that.
Oh my God, JT, I'm not bailing you out, man. I'm not. When you go to jail, I'm not bailing you out.
You remember that because you'll probably be heading there first.
Oh, well, you keep talking like that and I will.
I'm just here, guys. I've been frozen half the time. These two, I don't know.
People are gonna start commenting, leaving comments, going, "Are these two married?" No.
No.
Who's this guy that they are holding hostage during this episode? I'm gonna have to start putting up signs. Help me.
Go on. Sorry, man.
So once at one of the crime scenes, he noticed this truck left tire mark. So he immediately changed all his tires.
Yeah, this guy's not so stupid.
No, he's not.
I honestly don't feel that way anymore.
Real life, he's not stupid.
Yeah.
Here's another thing he did to gain the respect of other prostitutes because he knows they all talk to one another.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
He would pick up sex workers specifically to have very normal interactions with them so that they would go back and tell their friends that he was safe and that he would pay them. Okay. He would also plant evidence like cigarette butts because he wasn't a smoker. So when the police would go to these bodies and see cigarettes butts, they would test the cigarettes. But they wouldn't find his DNA on it because he's not a smoker. But that would make them think that what they're looking for is a smoker.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Or a fisher.
He also planted airport pamphlets so police would think he was a traveler. Now, this one's stupid. If all they know he's not a traveler because all the bodies are being found around the same area, dumbass.
Well, there is like a
that
kind of
was
weird
stupid.
triangle that he has. It's not so much that always along that river. A lot of them were found through the river.
Well, yeah, and that's my next. That's my next part here. He drove some of the remains from Seattle to Portland to try and convince the cops that the killer had moved south. So cops actually investigated this lead for a while, right? And he kept getting away with it all.
Oh, this guy was top of the notch serial killer, bro. He learned from everybody before him.
He wasn't so stupid. I think that throughout time, I think in school he had a low IQ because he's a kid. He wasn't being nurtured at home, right? So I mean, like all this affects your
Depends
mental.
what you think about nurtured, eh, guys?
We know this is nature. He had the McDonald triad. This guy was born serial killer.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was the McDonald triad was activated with a shitty mom and a shitty dad. Okay. Had he probably had the proper parentage, who knows? Maybe he wouldn't have done this. But was it in him, in his DNA? It was in his DNA. He had the McDonald triad, right? I mean, like,
I agree. I would have to agree.
With 3 legs. Like tails? It's a sperm cell with 3 tails.
What?
There you go. I just confused both of you. That's the triad. The 3 tails means it's a messed up. I can't say the word, so I'm saying it's just a kind of sperm with 3 tails. You know?
Oh my goodness.
That makes it different from all of us, everybody.
I said it before. I really hope God blessed you with a big dick because he gave you shit for brains, man.
He's pretty small too, man. I'll be honest.
Now, maybe you got Leslie. You've seen the younger photos of this man, but something that
me?
is the Green River Killer. You know, unlike some of, and again, I guess he's targeting prostitutes, so there's money involved, so it doesn't matter how he looked. Because I didn't find him like to be like some of these other serial killers that are good-looking men. This man is not very good-looking.
I don't know any serial killers who were good-looking men. I mean, I know that there was this whole infatuation with Ted Bundy, right?
Bundy pulled a lot of
Bundy being like Mr. like suavemente, you know, like.
I mean, there's a couple of them that you can make an argument for in the sense that they were able to get a lot of women, lure them in, not just based off looks, maybe also coercion and everything else, right? I mean,
no, there are women who are specifically attracted to serial killers. Well, they get a whole cult following, right? Me personally, I didn't find any serial killer good looking.
I mean, Dahmer obviously was a hit in the gay community, right? I mean, like, you know, and I know, I think that's what people are now confusing with the fact with the show. Everyone's in love with Evan Peters. The fact that they think they're in love with like Dahmer possibly all over again is like, no, you're in love with this actor depicting Dahmer. If you actually look at Dahmer's photos, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, but there must be something to, you think it's just all the talk? They can talk the talk, these guys? Like,
okay, so here's it's a little more psychological than that.
Okay.
What I've read about it is this. Women are natural nurturers. Most women. Okay. There's like a nurturing, mothering factor that's embedded in a female's DNA.
Sure.
Don't
okay.
keep singling out females like that, okay? Because I find that insulting as a male, because what if I have that embedded in me? I'm just saying.
Oh my God. Shit for brains. Shut the fuck up, please. Let me speak.
You like that, Deeks?
Well, no, they'll throw her off. She was about to make a good.
Oh yeah, don't throw anybody. You guys are. This is like okay. You don't throw her off, Mister. Don't throw her off.
I was interested to hear what she had to say there. She was getting. I posed a question to her that you come in with your fucking 2 cents.
So
don't. Talk
I'm going to ignore what he said. I'm going to keep going.
You don't talk during the show. You know better. Go ahead.
So these women, right? They think in their head, right? They think that they could change these men.
Yeah,
It's that nurturing thing. And that's what attracts them, the project.
Doesn't work,
Right?
man. Look, I'm still here.
It's the
Guys,
project,
they
right?
can't change me.
So they're not in love with the man. They're in love of the
idea.
prospect or the idea that they could be the ones that save them.
Okay.
Like, okay, maybe, I don't know. I just don't see that. Like, if the minute I find out, wait, you did what? That's repellent for me, you know? Like, or when I hear like this kind of like train of thought or broken man, it's kind of like a repellent, you know? Like, you gotta really understand that these women are interested in them because they don't believe that they're innocent. They don't care that they're not innocent. What they think is that they're the ones who are going to be responsible to making them good humans.
Yeah. Okay. That's I thought that's what you were going to mention about that. That's why I'm just trying to wrap my head around why these guys are able to.
Because you never hear of women who are serial killers getting a male fandom.
No, but I can't think of any really hot serial killers that are women, to be fair. I don't know any.
There are no hot male serial killers either, but these women are, again, like I mentioned, they're not attracted to them physically. They're attracted to their mentality.
I refuse to believe it.
I refuse to agree with that one. I think there's some pretty hot guys out there that were serial killers at one point. I mean, even this guy was pretty good looking when he was in his Navy outfit.
I don't know, he wasn't.
So then, you know what? I got to say that Hollywood really needs to stop casting these guys as good looking actors.
Exactly.
Yeah, look who they played.
Zac Efron to be Ted Bundy.
Thank you. That's what I mean. That's what made me think that, because I watched this movie, I'm like, wow, this guy must have been a really good looking guy. Because it's fucking Zac Efron. I'm like, what the hell? Look at this guy. You know, he's super jacked. I'm just like, oh, all right. Yeah, this Ted Bundy, he pulled a lot of tail, eh? Like, yeah, I'm just like, look at this guy. You know, no, it's true though. But that's what's going on right now with the Evan Peters thing with the Dahmer.
Of course, he's the hottest person on television almost right now, Evan Peters.
Right.
Yeah.
And the worst part about this is, and sorry, Leslie, you can get back to it.
Yeah, no, keep it.
I just want to say one thing about it. It does apply to what we were talking about. That's why I asked this question. But with him, this doesn't apply. But I can't believe that this guy's getting recognized for this show after fucking doing so many great things prior to this show that people just.
I agree.
I mean, it's great. I'm happy for him, but it's ridiculous that
It's bad, that part, right?
How many great performances has this guy did on
American Horror Story?
The whole season, man.
Yeah, he's one of the best character actors on every season he's in on that show.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
and then and what's his name? The director of the writer of that, Ryan Murphy, did the Dahmer show too, so that's why he's involved in that. But I can't believe that this is what people are recognizing him for.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I mean,
so did you watch the My Friend Dahmer movie?
No, I haven't seen that one yet. No.
Okay, so that one I think you should watch.
Yeah.
Because the guy who plays Dahmer there does a really, 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 really good job.
Okay.
I would say as equally as good as Evan Peters, and he doesn't get the credit for it. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. But it does stick to the comic book.
Okay, I'll check it out. I'm gonna
check it out.
Yeah, I will.
It does stick to that storyline of the comic book because it was based on the comic.
Okay.
But it was really well done. Underrated, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
So So watch it. My Friend Dahmer.
Okay.
I think it's on Prime.
Yes, I think I did see it on there. You're right.
Yeah. For sure.
It was a really good depiction. The guy who plays Dahmer on it, I forgot his name, but he's really, really, really good at it too.
I'll check it out.
So here's the last part of the thing, and that was how he got caught. Like, technology is an ever-evolving thing, right?
Always.
One of the times that Gary was interrogated back in the 87, they actually collected his DNA before they let him go, right? Yeah. And so as smart as he wasn't smart enough not to leave the semen behind.
Of course, there was always some semen left. They get the drip.
Right? Didn't wear a condom. Didn't wrap it up. Right?
Yes, saran wrap wasn't around then. They were using it for sandwiches back in the 80s.
So in the summer of 2001, they were able to test it and link him to the crime. So they picked him up for outside of his work as he was walking home from work, and they picked him outside and they finally took him in. His DNA, however, could only conclusively tie him for 4 of his victims.
Mhm.
But
So he cuts a deal with the cops.
didn't you hear about the red spray paint?
No.
So the Kentworth that he worked at, the factory that he worked at, it was a painter. He worked in the paint booth, right?
Right.
So and there's a special paint code, like he was leaving some little red fibers on, and they were wondering that some of the bodies had paint left on them.
Well, yeah, that was one of the things too, and they linked him up to those too.
To those cars, to those because of the paint, because of his work, bro. Because they can take the paint.
I did know
that color to to the actual color code of a specific red that only Kentworth was using on their trucks at that time.
Yeah, they're mixing that color. Yeah.
Right. So I mean that helped out a bit. That helped out a bit too, right? I mean, it wasn't just the DNA; it was also that too. That kind of tech. I mean, there's a lot of
right, but there's nothing more conclusive than DNA.
Obviously, right? But I mean, that could put you at the scene.
That's hard proof. The paint is still circumstantial.
And he can also be banging. That could be coming on afterwards too, right? That paint,
right? So the paint can still be right. So paint, circumstantial evidence, DNA.
Hard evidence.
Is hard evidence. Like there's no question. Yeah. So he cuts a deal with the cops and says, "I'll tell and confess everything if you take the death penalty off the table."
Yeah.
He even led him to the bodies of women they haven't been found before. In total, they got him to confess to 49 murders.
It's crazy, bro. They actually took the death penalty away from him.
Yeah, and people were not happy about that.
I'm surprised nobody's gotten to him by now.
Like I said earlier, he said there were well over 90. He said he couldn't remember all of them. And he says he doesn't even remember his first kill.
No. This is what I mean. This is what's so weird about this guy. Like the disassociation. I mean, most people remember their first time regardless.
Yes.
You know
the deal Ridgway made was to cooperate with authorities on closing these cases in exchange for 48 life sentences without the possibility of parole. His formal sentencing will occur in January 2004. That was the article that was written. Because some of the victims were buried and possibly killed in Oregon and other areas outside of King County, Ridgway could face the death penalty in other jurisdictions. So he's never going to talk about those bodies, and he's never going to confess to them, ever. And he didn't leave his semen on them because he buried them.
Yeah, and the best part is
because the ones he buried were the ones he didn't go back to, have sexual intercourse with.
Or maybe he did, but he had to bury them afterwards because they gotten too fucked up and decomposed. Right,
well,
that's another thing too, right?
He even admitted that it was
getting nasty
in the book, at least, and that's why he said I had to start burying them farther away because I was worried I was going to go back and fuck.
Well, more. That's a common thing with necrophiliacs, right? Is that's the problem? They keep going back to that same fucking body if they can't find themselves a new one. Yes. Unfortunately, right?
So the families of these victims were angry. They had been led to believe that the prosecutors would seek the death penalty, but instead, capital punishment was plea bargained away.
Sad, man.
I don't know. So, I'm not a.
I know what you're saying. You'd rather have them suffering, but I'd rather put them in general population, for fuck's sakes, if that's
I think that's more of a fucking punishment than death penalty. I don't agree with the death penalty. I'm actually very much against the death penalty, but and I'm glad in Canada we don't have one, right? But
fucking life sentences should be a little longer in Canada.
Oh, I agree.
I think there should be a fucking really deep check into that now. Maybe 40 years ago was one thing, but I think nowadays it's a little different. There's a lot more people in Canada than there used to be.
Right. So now, even today, this case still affects the legal scholars in Washington State. The idea that if a man who premeditatedly murdered 49 women doesn't get the death penalty, then who's eligible for it? Right?
Why do they even talk about it? if they threaten people with it, because it's so sad. I mean, there is some states that do have it, but they're still trying to get rid of it in those states as well.
I don't know. Some of them have reinstated it.
Yeah, because if they've
Texas
changed
has
the right way,
abolished it and now reinstated it.
yeah,
Same as Missouri. They've abolished it in the past and now reinstated it. I don't know. It's a waste of tax dollars if you ask me.
you know how long it takes
Like-
to get on death, like how long it takes for them to actually kill you.
It depends on what state you're in. Some of them are quicker than others.
Yes.
Yeah, but some of them have a fucking lineup for that fucking thing.
Yeah, it depends.
crazy?
Like I said, some states have more like people on death row than others, and some people don't have. Some
I think
states
they
don't
should be
have a death
thrown in-
row, right?
I think they should be thrown in a fucking fire pit and left to burn alive. Why not? Think about it, guys. It's a good way to suffer.
Some of these people, yeah.
You know, I mean, they shouldn't be getting 3 square meals a day. Fucking not even normal people out there in society nowadays can have 3 fucking square meals a day. You know what I'm saying? None of these guys.
Are you
Like I
getting
said,
the death penalty because you think that you could reform some of these people, Leslie, or that you think they suffer more if they have to live the rest of their lives in the
Death is easy.
yeah. Okay, it's an escape.
but so living in jail at 3 fucking meals a day isn't that hard either, man. Most people do it on a regular basis outside of fucking in their real life. Look,
You know, real punishment
I don't
for
even have
someone
3
like this
square
is getting
meals
raped
a
in the
day.
ass every day, right? That's my
Well,
punishment.
that's
That's
what
what
I
I
mean,
think
general
should. That's
population.
what I think should be allowed.
yeah, general
You
population.
get what I'm saying? The torture to do onto the perpetrator what he did to his victims.
But that's what I mean. They're gonna
Except
get the
the
guy
death
from
part.
Oz. They're gonna get the guy from Oz to come in there and just
Oz.
ram him every fucking night, man. Straight up.
Jay, first off, for you to compare your life to those in prison, you have to eat 3 square meals a day. First off,
You know what torture? You know what prison life torture is for JT? No Timmy's.
no coffee. Yeah.
Fuck, man. I'd start adding to my sentence when I'm in there.
Leslie, he's comparing his own situation over there to jail a moment ago. That's why he's talking about 3 square meals.
I know.
I'm like, Jay,
I
you
know.
maybe eat 1 square meal a day, if that.
Not even a square, bro. Fucking it's half a
square,
circle.
yeah. Half a circle.
Sorry. Oh,
I don't think
Leslie.
we laughed this much on an episode of Killer Content before. I'm sorry. We're having a good time. Yeah.
We are.
You know, and I'll tell you something. Do you guys want to know yet where he falls or what?
Well,
Can
let
you
her finish.
guess?
It's almost done.
I want
Let
you
her
to see if you
finish.
It's
guys
almost
can guess.
done.
Yeah.
Just
I'm
by
just
the way I'm
giving us
talking about
some quotes that he said. Ridgway's contempt for women in general and prostitutes in particular was clear in his plea bargain statement. Okay, and this was his plea bargain statement. I picked prostitutes as my victims because I hate most prostitutes, and I did not want to pay them for sex. I also picked prostitutes as victims because they were easy to pick up without being noticed. I knew they would not be responded missing right away and might never be reported missing. I picked prostitutes because I thought I could kill as many of them as I wanted without getting caught.
So he admitted to it. Sorry, where? Sorry, I missed what you. What point in time did he finally admit this?
This was his plea bargain statement. That
So
was his
then-
actual plea bargain statement.
So this is after the 180 days of them interrogating him and everything else. Wow. So he finally admitted it at the end there. Oh, interesting. So I'm guessing that Jensen, unfortunately, was not a part of that confession by that point, the way they ended this book, that because
No.
he didn't get that self-satisfaction. And they did say that they went on to have to interrogate him for 180 days or whatever. But at that point, after he first kind of came into when they had their little back and forth in this book, at least, that was when he had the mental breakdown at the end of that, right? And his partner ended up dying because he had Lou Gehrig's disease of all fucking things. It was very random. His partner had Lou Gehrig's disease there towards the end, and he retired, and his partner ended up dying. And like you said, he went to jail, right? So
hold on. I do think Jensen knew about this.
Yeah.
Because it was his plea bargain statement. He had to sign it before he showed everybody where the bodies were. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well,
here's what I think happened. why it wasn't mentioned in the book this way.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to be offensive to the writer now.
Okay.
Okay. Jeff Jensen is an entertainment journalist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
You're not going to want to paint your dad in a bad light. You're not going to want to paint the police in a bad light. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're going to be a shit disturber and do a whole conspiracy theory, or did you really catch the right guy?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the way he kind of ended it in the back.
Yeah.
Right. He made you want to question if they caught the right guy or not.
I don't know.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yes and no. I get what you're saying though, but I also think
But it kind of like pushed the narrative that way a little bit.
Yes.
I mean, although it's confirmed that they did catch the right guy, right? Like I said, this was like my beef with this, right? Like I get it's the perspective of your dad, right? It was a great read.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a great perspective because people shouldn't give cops as much slack as we do, right?
No.
But you also have to take responsibility for what went wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And he knows the responsibility for what went wrong. Tom Jensen knows the responsibility of what went wrong. Yeah. But he's an entertainment journalist. That's what he does for a living.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously he's going to also manipulate the end of this book to be that way as well. Mm. That's the way I see things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because this was done, this wasn't his like Tom Jensen was still working. He hadn't retired yet. This was his plea bargain statement.
Right.
Right. So this guy knew that the statement was done because it was the plea bargain statement. Right.
Yeah. No, that. See, it's
well put. Yeah. No, I think that's fair.
Yeah. It mentions a different cop and sergeant too at one from the interview that was on. It's actually on. If you guys have Tubi, it's on there. It's the Sins of the Father.
Yeah.
Right, that one there. That's the one that shows another one, Reinhardt or whatever. That was there. There was another cop in there too that you see, and the poor guy looked, like he's seen so many dead bodies through his thing. He was only in there for a short period. They're a lot older, right? They're all a lot older right now. From obviously when this took place, right? Think about it. But they, just the amount of bodies they had to go to at that point. Could you imagine, dude? I'm still trying to fathom that. Because like it does. I know you like you guys were just saying you don't want, like Leslie was just saying that she thinks that it painted her father in a good light, and he painted his father, in a good light, right? The writer, but at the end of the day, I mean, how could you not when they at the end of the day they did it? Whoever was the last people to reopen, like to keep it going and finish it off. At the end and revisit it again, because at one point they didn't know what was going on, and you know what I mean, right. When he had stopped killing and all this stuff, and then they had a new sheriff that came in and
right.
Oh yeah, they changed leadership in this task force. Yeah. The only person who was consistent was Tom Jensen, right? But there were many times where he was working alone, right? They had other homicides to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I know.
And
that's what I'm saying. There's more than there's other.
Right? He killed the most between 82 and 84.
Yeah.
And then in 1987, and then in 1990, and then in 1998.
Yeah, but the amount just in the 2 years.
Oh yeah. Well, we can't fathom how much because we don't know.
1.7 people a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes
1.3 a day. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird when you break it down the math.
So for the sake of just dumping the rest of the art, I had prepared for this though, because we pretty much, and I know
please do.
A little.
This is done. This is like the end, anyways. Yeah.
So I'll just go through the last bit of art that I had collected for this here, because we pretty much covered everything now that's was covered in the book here. So here very quickly, in this scene, they jump to the future. This is Jensen as he's older now on the police force after investigating for 17, 18 years at this point. This is kind of where they finally bring him in, here to the
police. They do a good job of drawing Ridgway. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
They did a bad job.
I've seen pictures. I mean, like the picture that Leslie sent for this episode. Yeah, they did a great job. Even
they did a great job.
He has. Yeah, he did a good job. The artist. Yeah.
A lot better than the fucking compository sketch that they had of him in the original. And the guy had fucking curly hair.
Oh,
yeah. This isn't the thing that I watched. The actual.
Okay, this is when they basically brought. This is now like the few cops that they have him hold up in while they're investigating and trying to find all the bodies here with him, and he takes them out into like different areas, and they're investigating it. I think I showed this earlier, and
Yeah.
So you see a little bit that there's an interesting thing about the airstrip that he was he was leaving bodies along, and that because of the noise of the airstrip overhead,
right? Because it was loud enough, and you hide the screams. That was another thing that he did. Right? There's so many things that he did. That's why he's not so stupid.
And this documentary doesn't get too far that I watched too just yesterday on purpose, and just to refresh my memory a bit. But it didn't get that much into depth because of so many, like you said in the beginning of this, Leslie, so many unfortunate people lost their lives, and they couldn't touch on every little single thing. So there was about this one, you might like it because there was about 6 different podcasts that helped with this documentary. Right, and I'm pretty sure you might know a few of them. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure you probably have listened to. Maybe I feel like you
Crime
have.
Junkie being one of them.
I just feel like you have. I mean, like I said, this one came out a few years ago. This one came out.
I did listen to 2 podcasts.
This actually came out this year, 2022.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Yeah, so
I just didn't have the time to watch it. Like I said, I'm researching 4 other serial killers at the same time.
I know. Well, I know. That's why I kind of read this one, because I mean that's why.
And honestly, I'm like halfway through the research on 2, and one's almost finished with and I 2 are almost finished, right? And I've been back and forth on which one I'm going to do, and then I realized, oh shit, it's Halloween. I have to have it Halloween oriented. So then I went off and I got a 3rd one and finished that one.
Well, no, but I mean, like,
play on words here. You're absolutely killing it, Leslie.
but no pun intended.
Yeah.
But no, at the end of, like, that's the reason why I went to refresh my memory, because there's so many things even now that you hear that has changed over the years, because it's been around for so long, for 40 years, and we've been hearing different things here in and out. And that's what I mean. It must have been hard too for Leslie to do the research in that sense, because there's so many things out there that can steer you in the wrong sort of direction, because now you've got you don't have much about the people missing, but you have a lot about people talking about how they caught them, how they caught them, how they had to catch them. Because
what I did like also about the comic book, Nico, regarding what JT's saying and how it fits in well, is the fact that they did focus on some information of some of the victims, of their stories. Because you know how, to me, that's what I like the most, is the information on most victims. Unfortunately, even if I did have more information on these victims, I wouldn't be able. We would have to do like 3 seasons of 13 episodes each for me to focus.
Well,
I would love to see them do true crime on this serial killer. Like they do a true crime. I know the True Detective sort of thing, and just do an episode on this, man, of some sort.
Well, yeah, there was a scene, like Leslie was saying, where he actually goes to one of the victims, the mother's house, and is asking her questions about it. And it's one of those things where, like, she finally got closure 20 years after the fact. He was able to go there and give her the good news. Well, the bad news, because
bad news
in her
but
head,
closure.
Yeah, in her head, she was like, what if she's actually still alive out there still? And he actually said, well, listen, man, like, so she didn't lose hope. He was like, I was involved in a case one time when there was somebody who got amnesia or something like that, and basically reinvented themselves, like relocated themselves essentially without even knowing that they had this whole past life, and somebody lost them in their life for I don't know how long, he said, and then they actually found the person alive and well, thinking that there's somebody else, some other assumed identity that they got. So like they got, you know what I mean? Like that's pretty crazy. Like he actually said that in this book, that was something he had come across at one point in his career, and that he was trying to give her hope, you know? But this was interesting too. I think Leslie had mentioned this killing. This was pretty messed up. Like she's got like the sweater or whatever. The
yeah, it's the striped pants.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there were a couple that he tied with his own socks as well.
Yeah.
So from this documentary, and I don't know how true it is, but from what I said, that the one with the fish body, the one on the fish, was one of the
one with the. It was the
one of the girlfriends. When one of the girlfriends was cheating on her, left him or something. The second one, I think it was maybe.
No. So what happened was.
Off by saying it, but
he really liked her, right? Mm-hmm. And they had a sexual relationship, right?
Yeah.
And he asked her to come over, and she said, "It's got to be a quick one because I have to do this and this and this and this." And he got so upset, right, that he killed her right after they had sex. And he actually slept with her for an entire evening with her next to her dead body.
Yeah. They're saying that she had some sort of feelings for her for that reason.
Yeah. So like he did have feelings for her, and he just got so upset because he felt rushed, right? Even though she did tell him ahead of time, like I can't. And that actually is described really well in the book.
Yeah. I remember them talking specifically about that one, just because that was one of the ones, the first ones before, like that kind of threw him off.
I think that was Christensen. I think that was her name. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This scene in the book here they showed was them basically in this scene when they found that girl with the pants or whatever pull up over her head. And they came across this body and this new evidence and everything else. They basically showed how this small town, how this now is becoming picked up in the media. And they even point to a footprint that was on the ground. He's like, well, is that our footprint or is this his footprint? Or like, he's like, this whole crime scene is already messed up because of all the people here. Like, this is, to Leslie's point earlier, this is how sloppy and not used to this type of thing that they were. Like, they really fumbled it right from the start. Yeah. Like they there was all types of evidence that they could have already, what's the word for it? Like messed up essentially, like in this, in this situation as a result of that, right? So that was really cool that they depicted that, I thought, in the book.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't ready for this media that was going to hit their town and hit the news as a result of all this at that time, right? So it kind of hit them pretty hard, and they weren't ready for it, right? So and then they kind of got swept away and everything, right? So this is Buddy Jensen searching some of the locations, getting frustrated. He ends up falling down a fucking hill in this scene, like, and Buddy's in the car, and they're just they're driving him around.
Yeah,
he's pointing out like places that for him to check the body. And like they're all like dead ends essentially, right? They're all like, yeah, sorry, this has been paved over. There's another building there now, and whatever else, right?
Question: out of everything you're saying, out of those little words, how did you get that?
So comics, the great thing about comics as a medium is that the story is told through art and words.
Yes,
Sometimes you can actually learn if the artist does a good job in terms of storytelling. That's why artists sometimes get short shrift in the comics medium, because a lot of the times people got to understand the artist is a lot of the time is doing
the storytelling.
Lifting. Yes, exactly. The artist should be way more respected than the comic writer at all times, because he is doing majority of the heavy lifting by taking that person's words and actually showing you the scene. And there's a lot of great storytelling told by artists that's done without words at all.
So you could hear a lot of this scene, let's say, of him falling down in words, maybe not as many words as you think, like I would think, like a paragraph or whatever, but in a few words prior to knowing what happens in that scene. Because all I'm seeing there is another falling.
Right. Here's another thing, Nico, that I'd like to add about the artist. People take for granted that the artist is responsible for providing the emotion behind the scene through the pictures. Whereas when we're reading a novel, there has to be a whole bunch of synonyms and adjectives to describe the feeling of something. Where an artist in a comic book, like, for example, look at this picture here on the right. You see the anger or the confusion in his face, right? As he's or the confusion as he's going, as he's falling down. He's like, is he gonna be okay? Like the artist had to really do his, like, depict that emotion through his art.
To your point too, like a lot of the times though, like they are sometimes the divide of work and decisions making in that because you know, they work together in that sense. Sometimes the artist takes advantage of what the writer has written him and kind of adds to it with his own idea or vision for this scene. And then other times, really how a comic script is written, he'll say panel 1, page whatever, I need a guy falling down a hill here, and make him look surprised. And like Leslie said, sometimes the writer actually dictates the expression that's going to be on this character's face in that specific panel that we're actually reading as the reader. So yeah, it's a very interesting back and forth collaboration comics in that sense, because like they are both bringing something to the page. And that's why I think you can do things in comics that you can't do in a lot of other mediums. There's things that you can do in comics you can't do on the screen unless you're going to be, you know, you're going to be spending millions and millions of dollars with CGI nowadays, right? Because the artist is able to actually draw that and put. So yeah, that's a good point you brought up, Jay.
Sorry,
because
I just wanted to bring up the art, right?
Yeah, no, but like you said, how did I take away that from the story by just looking at this page? Yeah, no, that's how it is, right? That's how they do their job, and that's how you can tell a good storyteller in that sense, right?
Yeah.
This was a scene where they went and actually were investigating a guy that was a dead end who actually fucked with them. Like they actually went and searched into this guy, and then he turns around and he says he's going to write a book about it. Remember this scene, Leslie, where there's a guy?
Yeah. So I actually had a part written about that, and I completely took it out because I thought, you know what? Who gives a fuck about all the fucking other suspects? Because there were like 6 other fucking guys. 2 of them confessed. Okay. Yeah. When it was bullshit, right?
The taxi cab driver, eh?
And 3 other guys came and said it was some other guy. Yeah. Okay. And then there were other people coming in and say, I know who the Green River Killer is. It's this guy who's a pedophile. Right.
Well, they actually
that's this case, right? Yeah. There were so many people who were tipping these cops by either confessing to crimes they didn't do because they wanted the attention. I'll never understand that. I will never understand someone, I know, because it's happened in so many cases. Yeah. So many cases. I do understand to a certain limit about the corruption behind false confessions, because cops and prosecutors get so desperate that they manipulate the minds of certain people in order to get a false confession out of them and put them in jail. That part I understand. But people who voluntarily go in to say I am that murderer or I am that criminal, I can't understand that. I've tried, man. I've tried to look at different perspectives that way. I just can't understand them. I can't fathom what goes on in their minds, JT.
But listen, hey,
way to bring it back. Way to bring it back. That was really good.
They even had they were showing a taxi cab driver that used to pick these girls up all the time, right? Yeah. And they found out that he was selling his car, so they bought it just to get some evidence. But they found a bunch of nude photos and this and that. I honestly believe he was just wondering, hey, where did all the girls go? Because I think they were giving him free shows for a ride home or whatever, and this and that. That's all I feel that you know. But he slipped up on one of his words on the interview.
Sometimes they have their reasons, right? I mean,
like, I mean, he could have probably just been nice and talked to them and whatever, and actually drove them home, right?
This page specifically, I thought was really impressive. Like they're trying to show you all these past victims and how all the details were getting muddied up essentially through the art. Like that's what I took from this one. I like, you know what I mean? All the details were kind of getting messed up and kind of, you know, all his memories were kind of flowing here. Like, yeah. So they show you all specific panels of different women that he's killed, different scenes that they've already depicted throughout the book towards the end here, how everything's kind of, you know, getting lost in the mix essentially here, right? Or washed up, let's say, in the river. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I really like that. Again, you can take what you want from the art, right? But I think there's a lot of great scenes that they depicted. Him finally getting caught here in the rain here when they actually arrested him. And again, the interrogation here that went down at the end. and how this guy, the Jensen guy, this is him trying to renovate his washroom and trying to put the little tile pieces on. And they're saying that, you know, he's jittery and he's got health issues, and a lot of the things are getting to him here towards the end, right? This is him. He finally redid the whole bathroom because he, again, Jay, as I was saying, he was trying to when he went
clear
home.
his head.
Yeah, this is what he used to do, right? So yeah, really cool. And then basically,
When you think about it, those tile pieces are like him putting together pieces of this crime scene
Yep.
together. You know what I mean? If you think about it like that, if you want to interpret it any way you want, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, this is the final. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. This one that Leslie mentioned earlier about how he admits here that he just created this false narrative of this body to basically throw them off the trail mid earlier on in the murders too, right? I mean, it's pretty crazy how he kind of threw them for a loop, and he said he got him finally to admit, like, why did you do this? Like, and this is where he says, like, why did you do this? And he just basically says, I just needed to kill. And then
That's it, man. He was just straight up about it.
Goes in the other room. He's got his hands in his, you know, his head in his hands there, and he just has a breakdown. And then from here on out, he just, I think he retires shortly after this. They talk about, and his partner there that's in there controlling died, and he went to jail. And then this is kind of where I think they did all those interviews or whatever that you guys were mentioning here earlier. Like, I think this is jail finally confessing or giving his plea or whatever at this point in the scenes. And this is him telling the woman that they found who killed her daughter finally. And this was the epilogue essentially. But at the end, though, is Jeff Jensen. He did a nice little epilogue where he's like, my father finally was able to take his. This is just a personal thing that he did. This has nothing to do with the case or whatever.
Yeah.
That he said my father was finally able to have their honeymoon. Like, you know how people get remarried? The place that they got married was the same place that the killer got married to his first wife.
Yeah.
Years and years ago.
Full circle there is so strange.
For the honeymoon. And he said, said it was tainted forever once they found this out for him and his wife. So he purposely went to a new destination wedding and remarried his wife when he finally returned from the course. And it was kind of like a nice end to the story here for his dad. So that was, but that's so messed up that he found out that his father, they had their original honeymoon after they got married in a place so that he did as well, the killer.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, yeah, exactly. Full circle for him. And
some things are like destiny, you know, like Dahmer getting killed the same exact way he first murdered that one guy.
The way,
Which in the show, do you notice? What? Thank you for taking those off. In the show, did you notice that they did not use a dumbbell for the murder?
Yes. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You're loud, man.
So
I can hear you even with my headphones off.
One of those like no, he used one of the smaller hand with like the what do you mean? Oh, he used the bar. He just used the bar. That's right. He used the weight bar that you put on the actual. Yes, you're right. That's what he did.
I really wish that they would do. That's the only part that bothered me about that show that wasn't accurate. All the other inaccuracies didn't bother me as much, but that one did because
it's important.
It was full circle.
Yes,
it is important.
Yes, it is important.
Can I come back on now?
Yeah.
Okay, I turned the volume all the way down so I didn't hear any of you guys.
But yeah, there you go. That's all I had to show in terms of the art of this book. Once again, I do think
it was artistically, it was beautiful. Like I said, I really enjoyed looking at someone else's perspective of what happened. There are tons of different perspectives when something happens like this. There's going to be the killer's perspective, there's going to be a detective's perspective, and there will be a victim's perspective, right? There will be a witness's perspective, right?
I would suggest, though, if you want more, go beyond this book, folks. Yeah. I think
there's not a lot except for podcasts. There's not a lot.
Right. So maybe
you can't find any sort of documentaries.
Even the podcasts aren't as detailed.
It's hard, man.
Well, there you go. I think
I've listened to like 3 or 4 of them, and I had to like listen to different ones and read different things on this guy to get all the information that I had. Like it was extra resources I had to look at.
I don't think
because everybody had bits and pieces.
I don't think you got to look further than this show, quite frankly. I think Leslie did a great job. Honestly, no, yeah. Once again, Leslie, yeah, great job compiling all this information together. Then, because like you said, it is very sparse between podcasts and the videos and this book, and that's what I mean. If I just read this book, if I didn't have this conversation with you here tonight, half of the stuff that you provided us with here today was not really covered in this book. So that's why I just wanted to make that clear. Yeah. A lot of the best stuff that they discussed, the Bundy stuff, all that, everything else, like the things about how he got caught, like a lot of the details about how he became this killer and everything else is not in this book. So like, I think you have to seek out other sources, or like you said, if you enjoyed what you saw here today, maybe like listen to some of those other podcasts, watch the videos if those are online on the Tubi Sins of the Father or whatever. Right. So yeah.
That's the one I didn't watch, the Tubi thing, but I definitely will watch it.
Check it out. It's interesting. It's just, different police perspectives. I don't know who's which cops at all the times, right? But different perspectives here and there. So
for sure.
Yeah, take a look. I decided to throw it on, right? That's why I didn't watch the Dahmer thing either.
Right? Why didn't you watch the Dahmer thing?
Because I didn't want to start mixing up the killings. In a sense. Like just
you didn't want to start what?
Mixing up the killings, like in my head.
Okay, with this one. Yeah.
Confusing it, right? Absorbing it. Like.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
Right? Plus, I wanted to focus on this one and then focus. Like I know the other one, it's not somebody that I know as much, but the Dahmer one I want to focus on individually because they're all different. They're episodes too, right? So I did watch the first episode. I've gone through that part, but that's it. And then I fell asleep, man, and I crashed out. So, but yeah, no, I just, I'm trying to wait for that one.
Well, there you go. Once again, we're 3 hours into a great conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Honestly. Yeah. No.
These always go even longer because there's so much to compare to. There's so much to talk about, right?
We're not only because we're covering a book, we're covering all your research. There's 3 of us. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you guys can do 2 hours, 2.5 hours just with the 2 of you, right? And we're covering even more in this conversation that we had here and having some laughs and whatever else. It was good, man. This was a good conversation.
Our next one will be quite long, too, because it's a very high profile one.
Is that a Halloween one that you got kind of for?
Yeah, well, it's a darker one that I purposely did for Halloween. Lizzie Borden. Have you guys ever heard of Lizzie Borden?
I heard the last name.
Yeah, I recognize the name. I can't say I know much about it, but I recognize the name. Yeah.
So there's Christina Ricci did, I don't know if it was a series. I can't remember if it was a series, a mini series or a movie. And she did so good. Well, I'm a huge fan of Christina Ricci.
Same.
I can't wait. Her stuff, whatever she does, she's brilliant in. I'm a huge fan of hers.
She's gonna be coming back to the Wednesday Addams, the Addams Family, Tim Burton.
Is she?
For Netflix. Yes, she's not playing her, but she's
the other girl did.
Yes. Yeah. But somebody else is playing her, but she's coming back to do that. Also, there's the great show that
Yellow Jackets.
Put me on Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets. She's great in it. Yeah. She can play like a straight and narrow character. She can play, but to me, Christina Ricci is Wednesday. So I know the actress. Like I've seen the actress who's going to be playing Wednesday, some of her work. Yeah. Most recently, I saw a horror movie actually she did called X.
Yes, or something. Same here. I just watched it this week.
Okay.
I told Jay about it. I told Jay about it literally last night when we did The Jerk. I said, I'm like, you got to watch this movie. I don't know why it came up, but I said that. I'm like, it was a movie I just watched this week because there's a prequel that's out now, Pearl, it's called, which is about the old woman that's in the movie. Yes, and she plays her, and she was the one who played. No, not Christina Ricci. The other girl in that.
I forget her name.
The girl that plays Wednesday though is the
girl that's in this girl.
Yes,
in X, right? And I thought she did really well in X. Even though I didn't think like X was like some huge great movie. It was decent. It was a decent movie. Good. It was a decent movie for sure. Definitely entertaining, right? And a different concept.
Yeah.
As opposed to most horror movies, right?
2 days ago. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So like I was just like, huh, interesting. She's really good. And there's something else I've seen her, but everything so far that I've seen this girl in.
Probably
But
like
to me,
Hollow with Johnny Depp, probably too. You ever seen that one?
oh no, I'm not talking about Christina Ricci. I'm talking about
the other girl.
this new girl that's playing Wednesday. She's a great
She was in
actress.
Scream too. She was the new girl
Yes.
in Scream,
Yes.
Sydney Prescott in Scream, essentially. Yeah. The new
Yes.
JT, you've seen that one. She was the new Sydney.
Okay.
So I do think she's a talented actress, but I think it's because I grew up with Christina Ricci.
Yeah.
That to me, Christina Ricci will always be Wednesday to me.
Absolutely. But she looks the part. This girl is going to look the part, though.
She does look the part, which is fantastic. Catherine Zeta-Jones, when I heard that Catherine Zeta-Jones was going to be Morticia Addams.
You heard who Gomez is, right?
Yeah.
It's Luis Guzman.
Guzman, yeah.
That's fucking hilarious, man.
But
yeah.
When I first heard, really, Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia?
No, I think.
And then I saw the trailer, and I'm like, okay.
She's going to do a good job.
She will. Yeah. But at first, I was like, really?
Yeah.
And then I saw the trailer, and I was like, okay, yes. But Christina Ricci to me is Wednesday. Yes. So I know I'm going to have this poor girl. I'm sure she's going to do an amazing job, right? Because I haven't been disappointed with this new girl in anything that I've seen with her until now so far. But I'm just going to be like, I missed,
I'm with you on that. I am. You're going to go in there with some preconceived notion of how she's going to, she's not going to be as good as Christina Ricci. I get it. Yeah.
I hope but you know what? I got to just kick myself in the ass if I start thinking that way, right? Because I can't be that way. That's called bias, right?
Yeah. But I think, I think she's going to do a good job. I think. So yeah, guys, check that out. That's Wednesday. It's going to be on Netflix very soon. That's going to be a show based on Wednesday Addams from the Addams Family. It looks good. Tim Burton's doing it, so I mean,
nice.
Yeah. I mean, like if anyone's great at doing these I'm surprised. Has he ever done a TV show, Nico?
No, I think this is the first time.
This is his first time.
Yeah, as far as
that'll be interesting, right? Yeah. That'll be very interesting. Yeah. I love Tim Burton.
Yeah, I like his aesthetic that he brings to things, but I also don't like how he's been doing so many remakes, and we're sitting here talking about him doing the Addams Family, but I think it's a perfect vehicle for what he does. You know what I mean? I think it makes sense. You know what I mean? That he's going to be doing this, but I think it's just like, I haven't loved all his remakes of things he's done. I think as much as I know you love Johnny Depp, everything else, I think the Charlie and Chocolate Factory is a horrendous movie. I can't look at that film with eyes. I love the original so much. Like you said, biased. I went into that movie before.
I love the original so much too.
It's fantastic.
But I think the mentality that I went to watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory wasn't expecting it to be like the original. Because I love Tim Burton so much, I'm always interested in to see his perspective on characters, which is always very completely different.
Christine loves him, so like that's what I always fight her on this, that I don't love some of the things he's done.
And that's fair, right? Because you can like someone's vision and not like someone else's vision, right? It's all what you're into, right? Right? So I mean, like, I love Quentin Tarantino, but I don't like all his movies.
Yeah.
Don't get him started on this. That's not. It's going to be a long night.
I love Quentin Tarantino. I love Quentin Tarantino, right? But I don't love all his movies.
Jay's really be back.
Moving on. Come on.
Yeah.
It's like, what the heck? Where are we going now?
Love Joss Whedon, but I don't like all his movies. Right?
Well,
so
I still got to talk to Nico.
I really like Tim Burton's morbid visualization of things, but then again, due to the fact that I do killer content, it shouldn't surprise anybody that I like the morbid, right?
Exactly.
So I mean, the one thing I will say, I want to make clear, because like some people who tune into these podcasts, they glorify these killers. You will never hear me glorify a murderer. I will always respect the victims, and I will always bash murders, because guess what? Not everybody, this isn't easy. Like, you have to give the victims justice. That's the only part of this freaking Green River Killer that I've hesitated to do until now. I wouldn't have done it unless you actually gave me this comic, to be honest.
Oh, interesting.
There are certain I won't touch.
Interesting.
Okay. And that's because there are too many victims to give the victims justice.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, like that was another thing about it. Right. But there was a comic and I thought, okay, you told me about it. I'm like, okay, this will be a great one to do it this way, I guess, if we do it with the comic thing.
Yeah.
But another one that I won't do is Richard Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I won't do him is because I cannot do what the Netflix documentary did, which was just focus on his murders and not focus on the fact that he raped and kidnapped children for many years before he murdered. And I can't.
Yeah, no worries, Rob.
Yeah.
We're wrapping
Yeah,
up
thanks,
now.
Rob. Yeah, we're closing off anyways.
This much. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, Rob. Yeah.
Make sure to get those football picks in, bud. You already lost one this week.
You had to throw that in there.
Of course, you still here, at.
Yeah.
You already lost on your first pick this week, bud.
Oh, fuck. He's a shit disturber that he is. Look at him. Look, you got him fucking so giggly over there.
No, but I agree with you. I think when it's kids, it's a whole other. And I've always
I can't. I mean, there are a couple with kids that have been like mixed up that I've done, but Ramirez isn't one of them, man. Especially since the kids never got justice. They only charged him for the murders of the adults and didn't even bother charging him for the murders and rapes of the kids.
Yeah, no, it's
and they're the living victims, you know.
terrible.
Yeah, I can't.
Well,
So
there you have it. Yeah, bring it
great
home.
episode, man.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, great episode. 3 hours of talking.
Yeah, I know, right? It always takes so long.
Let's bring it back, and guys, thanks for everybody that stayed in and tuned in and out through this thing this long. And yeah, always thank you guys for tuning into Killer Content with Leslie. She puts in a lot of work. Nico just reads comics, but
Thanks for
and I
this,
just
Nico.
pretty-
Yeah, no
Really
problem.
appreciative.
No problem.
Really appreciative.
No problem. You can thank Jay for that one.
So yeah, guys, go back, check out The Jerk yesterday late night. Check out The
Moral
Jerk.
of the story: don't ever lend something to him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
check out The Jerk.
yeah.
Check out The Jerk.
TikTok.
Check out TikTok tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then me and you again on Monday. But you know what? Just before we go, I'll let you know that he is my second favorite.
Wow. You
Yeah.
said top 5. Now you're actually putting a number on it. Second.
Okay, hold on. Before you go, quick question: why is he your second favorite?
I like his personality. Sorry.
Well, there we go. Well,
No,
and,
but I like his
Alright.
genius. I like his genius. I like the way
he
he
thinks. He likes the way he thinks.
I like the way
Okay.
he, in a sense, not of what he does, but
He
I
likes
like how
he likes
hold
the
it.
fact that he can play stupid and be smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the way he holds it. He can hold it all together and composed. I don't know how he can do that after all that. So I don't know. I'd still be able to have a fucking kid and still be able to have I don't see how that's possible when you're that fucking sick in the head. But yeah, unfortunately, like we said, DNA wasn't around back then. Otherwise, we would have probably got a stop to this a hell of a lot longer than it took. So, but that's just because of time, right?
Well, there you go, guys. There you have it. So
My only one.
content. Make sure to tune in for October's show. Leslie's going to be talking about what was the killers again?
Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden. And I'm going to put as the outro song here because Jay mentioned this the other day that this song now reminds them of Leslie because of the way that Eminem mentions all of the serial killers in the song. Although it is from the Relapse album that was a serial killer concept album. Yet, it is a weirdly titled song to even touch on that. And that's Must Be the Ganja, guys. So that'll be the outro song.
It's a great track.
It is.
I love this song.
Absolutely. All right, here we go. See you guys next
All
time.
right, guys. Peace out till Monday.
Yep, here we go. It'll actually play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh.
like
feel like
dancing.
dancing. I smell something in the air that's making me high. I said I smell something in the air that's making me high. Okay, here we go. Do re mi fa sol la ti da so. Lyrical Roscoe, kick back a Tabasco. You motherfuckers must just not know the TikTok. So time to show you the most kick-ass glow in the cosmos. Picasso with a pickaxe, a sick asshole. Tic-tac-toe, punch a six-pack with Exacto.